Yeah,
if you could just get me to these by tomorrow and then I can take the gift card later.
yeah, so I know someone.
Okay.
So I know he has it and I'll just, tell him to give it to you.
Okay, or they can leave
Just
it
leave it,
before.
Okay, like to call the meeting to order at 6:30 PM. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Roll call starting. Steve on the left.
Steve Kozak.
Joe, are you chief?
Mike Kusa.
Vinny Canadella.
Tom Borowski.
Nicole Levine McCraft, Sue Condon, Debbie Sherman,
Brandon Rose?
Lindsay Kim.
Okay. Any amendments to the agenda? Okay. Moving on to approval of minutes. Anyone have a motion?
Motion to approve the November 12th regular Board of Education minutes.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Welcome back, Claire. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All those in favor?
Oh, yeah, actually, I do have something.
Go for it.
So in here, in those minutes, we have that we approved the student, the 10/28/24 minutes. And in there, it has me voting aye for an issue and also abstaining in that same issue. So clearly there's a mistake because it had to do with a student hearing and I abstained because I wasn't a part of that meeting, so I couldn't vote on it.
I did too.
So we need to correct that.
The 10/28/24.
Yes.
Okay, okay,
So change the motion to as amended.
change your motion to as amended. Any second?
Oh, I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to audience of citizens. Citizen. Board correspondence. We're moving along. I think we're on to action items.
Yeah, so one of our main objectives this year is AI. And as the board recalls, back in August at our retreat, we discussed the concept of piloting AI and really introducing our staff and our students because it's a critical skill for not only students to know and be able to do upon graduation, but our staff to begin to embrace and begin to innovate within the classroom, within the productivity of the district. Several board members at the time had questions about AI and wanted to learn more about how and what we intended to do. So we decided to invite Matt Mervis, who is a consultant from EdAdvance, somebody that's an expert in this field, somebody that we brought into our administrative team during the summer and did a workshop for half day with our team. We've attended several of his workshops over the last year, and we thought it would be very enlightening to bring him into the board this evening to present to you and then answer your questions about some of this work. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric and to Matt. I don't know if you want to say anything as well.
Yeah, like Dr. Merle said, we're lucky to have him already do some work with us and see him a few times. So we do have a couple different initiatives across the district. It's kind of taking it slow, as you know, even though I've been playing around with a lot of platforms, like we're still learning. So we have some teachers across the district that are doing a micro-credential course through EdAdvance as well. Learning more about it that are going to help drive some of the resources for students and staff. We have 612, the principals at the middle school, high school have asked for a little more PD specific for their teachers coming up in the second semester. So that is my go-to for when we need support with AI and as we begin to build some of these resources for students and staff and families, it's going to be kind of Matt we lean on for a lot of this support. So there is a lot to it, a lot of questions about AI, but Matt does a great job kind of explaining where things are and why this is an important topic for districts to start to kind of grapple with.
Great, excellent. Hi, folks. Nice to be here. So I'm Matt Mervis. I am, there, you can look at me in stereo. I'm always nervous. These guys have suffered through this joke, but I really don't own that many shirts, so on any given day, I'm like, okay. So, I'm happy if it's helpful to share a little bit of where we are with this technology with respect to schools. There are lots of important questions to ask about it. AI presents enormous opportunities, but also some serious questions about teaching and learning. So I'm happy to do a little sharing around that. I'll mention quite a few tools. Every tool that I mention is off of that website that's up there. So just as a handy reference for you. But I'm at Advance, which is the Regional Education Service Center up in Litchfield, Connecticut. I think technically I was a history teacher, so I know I'm a carpetbagger. I live up in Massachusetts and work down here in Connecticut, but they still let me come down over the line. So, and I'll make my way back over the line tonight. So, at any point, please interrupt me, ask questions, push back, all that good stuff. But typically I try to start these conversations around where are we with this technology? And just out of curiosity, for my own temperature read, and if you don't raise your hand, like you might be the wisest among us, but maybe you've used like a ChatGPT type tool like in the last month, let's say. Okay, great. Students among us. Okay. And again, if you haven't, that's fine. You're gonna get a little view of what some of this technology is as well. So let me just jump in, but that helps me understand where people are. So I call this the great everything making machine. And it sounds like I'm overly excited about it. There's pieces of this that I think are just fascinating and really interesting, and also pieces I'm mindful about. So that up there, you can't really see it particularly well, but the prompt up top says, "Hi, please." This is a kid prompting an AI. So it's nice that they use please in there. It says, "Hi, please write me a 5-paragraph essay about cell mitosis." And in the amount of time it took for that to get created, ChatGPT will have used something called predictive pattern matching. All the words that it knows, it basically constructs that essay, right? I don't know how many of you remember your 7th grade cell mitosis? Yeah, no, you put it away. You might take a guess, we could lean on the educational experts here at the table, but you might take a guess that there's something funky about that essay, right? From a 7th grade kid. You don't have to actually see the words, but it's a good point. What would just strike you surprising? Have any of you had a 7th grade in your home, a 7th grade child in your home?
Well, what I've read is that if you read current versions of this, it tends to repeat certain things or rephrase certain things over again.
Yeah.
Almost like a politician.
But not a board member, right?
So it is definitely. So there's those kind of key words, key phrases, key things that are just generic.
Yeah.
So you know that it's artificial.
Yeah, and getting trickier, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, so in addition to that, if you could see all those words, you might say that looks a little long. I don't know, I should ask you guys first. I mean, did your 7th grade cell mitosis look like that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, right. Like not quite that well conceived, right? The sentences appear to start with capitalization, they end with punctuation. Got a lot of words up there. Yeah. So now what's interesting is that this is a clever student. So he goes back to the AI model and says, "Hey, my teacher's never going to believe I wrote that. Can you make it shorter and can you misspell every 7th or 8th word?" Now for AI, that's actually a walk in the park. Anything you guys hear, don't get any good ideas. So that's not a hard task. People worry legitimately about AI using these things called tokens, which use a lot of energy. This is not a difficult AI task. In fact, this student could have said, unlikely, but could have said, "Can you translate that into Mandarin?" And it would have done that as well. So it's tricky, right? You have a tool that nobody asked for that will write something that looks like it was done by a kid, or any of us for that matter, in mere seconds. This is all just the free version of ChatGPT. This assignment went on and said, "Now can you make me a drawing that looks like it was done by a 7th grader about the life of a cell," right? So the AI system, in the same amount of time that you see there, generates that. Again, student says, "I don't think my teachers can believe I did that one. Can you redo it? Let's imagine you're a 1st grader doing kind of a finger painting style," right? These are all just, again, at the time that you're seeing these tools construct these types of outcomes. And in the last quarter of the last academic year, the good folks at OpenAI threw in 3D models. So I could put in a prompt and it would create a 3D model that I could run off to a CAD or off to a printer in no time. It's sort of fascinating. So that's half of human output, right? Print, images, reformatting print, translating into different languages. So this summer comes along this thing called Udio. Napster, do you all remember Napster? Had a couple songs in there. Feel like you may have more than a couple.
Quite a few.
This is the Napster of the AI age. This is a thing called Udio. There's another one called Suno. And they've taken all the songs, right? And they've taken them, quite honestly. This is not something they paid for or licensed. They appropriated them. I'm not a lawyer, but they stole them. Is that machine on there?
Yes.
Are there lawyers that own them?
Possibly.
Okay.
We have one.
I'll give you my email address, we can pick it up, but. So they got all these songs inside this AI model, so that if somebody goes and they write a prompt, just like that kid said, write me an essay about cell mitosis. This prompt says, write me a song about cell mitosis. I was a history teacher, believe it or not, and every single thing I talk about is cell mitosis, I don't care. So it says, write me a song about cell mitosis in the musical and lyrical stylings of the musical Wicked, right? So let me just make sure my little radio system here. Yeah.
Sounds divine, it's quite a sight, my dear. The magic's in how they split just right from one.
Practice IP law?
No.
Might want to get into it. Yeah, so it's really interesting. And actually, they have pulled that back. If I try to do that prompt, it would now say, we won't do it exactly in the style of Wicked, because Disney, I'm sure, threw 100 lawyers at it. They said, we'll do it something in a Broadway theme, right? So how does that happen? I like pictures when I think about this stuff. I mean, there's all the words and the songs, but I'm fascinated by pictures. That is, you know what that is? The creature up there? Is he, who said that? Yeah, there we go. There's audience, citizen. Yeah, so that is a Yeti. Are you a believer? Maybe. So this was designed by a tool called Adobe Firefly. And just like Udio has all the songs and ChatGPT has all the words, Adobe Firefly has about 2.5 billion images in their model. And so if somebody goes in and types, this is from a group of teachers in Eastern Connecticut, 8 o'clock in the morning, mind you, a couple summers ago, they said, we want to see a Yeti, which is the far left. Then they wanted a Yeti with mead, like ancient mead. Somehow that turned into a female Yeti with beverages, and then a Yeti with 3 arms. So if you went on a Google image search and said, show me a picture of a Yeti with 3 arms for the function of holding 3 beverages, no one was silly enough to make that prompt. But in the world of generative AI, because it has 2.5 billion images in the back end, it will do that here again. That's kind of, I think just an interesting way to conceive it. I tried this before I came out tonight. Said, hey, I'm with this great board of ed in Oxford tonight. Can you create an image of the board learning about AI? Okay. And so I got that. Now, by the way, you'll notice I did BOE, which I thought I would have gotten as board of ed. This looked a little, I didn't know exactly what you all were going to look like, but it looks a little corporate to me, right? So look at the sophisticated way I interact with the AI. I said, nice, this looks a little GQ corporate, right? Can you make it a bit more informal? Think school board. We're closer here, right? Yeah, we're closer. It's kind of summertime here with the Birkenstocks and what have you, but. And so then I responded again, there you go, nice work. Can you make these folks a bit terrified? And we got there. And I'm impressed with the level of terror here, quite honestly. So I said, wow, a cartoon, that's fine. Let's go more terrified. Got that, yeah. So what's happening in all these interactions is simply 2 things. All those images are in the back end of the system. And then second, folks are often intimidated by, oh, technology, AI, this seems complicated. I mean, look at the way I interact with this thing. You're basically interacting like a human being with a piece of technology, which makes it quite different and interesting than what we've seen before. Okay, so how's this happening? Very quick kind of computer science conversation. The Udio, all the songs, or Adobe Firefly, all the pictures, that's all the stuff up top, which again was kind of appropriated. We'll just use that word. And they run them through these networks of computers, which are called neural networks. They're computers that are organized like our brains, and they're able to take all that data. They run on one single kind of chip from a company called NVIDIA. Now, if any of the board members have any NVIDIA stock? No, you got a smile. Sometimes people don't want to confess, right? Because your neighbor's gonna be like, oh, you should take me out for dinner. It's the world's most valuable.
Restaurant,
What's that?
or by the restaurant.
Or by the restaurant. My old board chair, in the nonprofit where I work, is one of the owners down at Char and Lemon. So he had IBM. I don't know if he had NVIDIA or not, but, so, yeah, they run them through all these networks. This is now the world's most valuable company, by the way, and it creates these human outputs. So for teachers, just the first part, I mean, the song is fun and the pictures are interesting, but the very first part, where you can take a piece of text and it can look like it was done by a student and it's very hard to detect, is tricky. When I was a high school history teacher, there's a whole bunch of stuff I might have assigned that I really might not have known if a student had done it. And so there are these things out there called content detectors, AI content detectors. You'll hear about them, the board may have talked about them. And it would be nice if they worked. It would be great, actually. I mean, no one asked for this technology, so if the tech companies would give us a fix for these things, but they don't work reliably, and that makes it a little bit tricky. There have been multiple board cases around the country that have been hooked around. There's a case in Hingham, Massachusetts right now that the board's involved in. It's been hooked around a content detector. And it's a piece of technology, but it's not the only piece. Someone put the US Constitution into one of these content detectors. You feed the writing in as a teacher and go, hey, did AI write this? So this content detector said that our US Constitution was 92% likely to have been written by AI. Right, our US Constitution. So it's not a full proof strategy. So, and it gets even trickier, actually. This is really a place where you guys can't take notes. It's not just ChatGPT, right? There is a thing called AI Vision that you can have access to on all your phones. This is using a student using a tool called Goth, right? They call themselves a study companion. These are made, by the way, by the same company that brought us TikTok. So they're just contributing lots of value to our culture and society, one at a time. But Goth is a tool where, you know, if Eric had a worksheet here, like a geometry worksheet, and I'm at home, actually that looked a little bit like a math problem. The student could hover over that and it would automatically look at the worksheet and tell them what the answers are to that. So it's not just what do you type into the computer, it's also how do you use AI vision on your phone. The math teachers have dealt with this forever. There's a thing called photo math, but now this tool makes this available in any kind of context. What's tricky about AI is that that same technology would let a student who is newly arrived to this country, who could be from Mexico or Vietnam, be able to take a picture of a page off of the textbook and have it translate that into their target language, which is incredibly powerful. Or a school that doesn't have access to lots of different languages, be able to take a look at a health record and redact a student's name and get a translation of that health record in real time, right? So that is the sort of thing about AI, is that every piece of it has lots of opportunity, but also lots of ways that students can shortcut and kind of take shortcuts in learning. Okay? With me so far? This is a big like inhale, exhale kind of conversation because some of this stuff is a little confounding. All right, so I won't go through this in detail, but there are a number of different steps that I'm seeing school districts do around this work, okay? And boards are involved in some of them, including this first one. And I think you've actually done a little bit of this work already, but some of this is about, this tech isn't going away, so some of it's about really helping even students in the K-5 realm understand what this is and how do they begin to kind of think about being ethical with its use. Many school districts have either made modifications to their board policy, which I think you guys have done around academic integrity, and or created something that you might call like a guideline for students. So this is Wolcott Public Schools. I've been working with them for a bunch this last year. So in their student-facing guideline, you know, and they might have been early. I think every school is going to find the right landing time for this. You're not late by any stretch of the imagination. By next year, right, you would want to have something that helps every student and teacher, especially at the high school, know what is it, what are the challenges with it, when are you allowed to use it? So Wolcott's very specifically says, when can a student use it? When the teacher says they can, and they need to cite their use. We're just super explicit about that, right? What are things to be careful about? What are examples of inappropriate and appropriate usage? And what are the roles and responsibilities? I know this is small text, but for teachers, for parents, right, for administrators and for students. And that's a nice strategy. I think it's worth, over time in the next year or so, exploring together. And then there's a bunch of other just teacher moves. We don't need to get granular about them, but there's gonna be more observing stuff in the classroom. There are some schools that have gone back to blue books so that folks are writing this stuff out by hand. I personally find that, I mean, you can see my handwriting, it feels like a form of torture. But there are other ways to just supervise. If it's a skill that you really care about and you're worried that students are gonna use AI to do that skill outside of the classroom, do it in the classroom. We had this with calculators, like some of you are of a vintage, well, you remember, calculator came out, we go, oh no, they're never gonna do computation again. And what we did is we put a little walled garden around the classroom now and then, they learned how to do computation, and the world didn't end. And AI is, it's a big calculator, like I'm not just, discounting it, but so supervising instruction will be a piece that we'll do. There are tools that are really neat that teachers can use to help look at students' writing. My favorite thing, honestly, is as a former high school history teacher, if Eric handed in a paper to me and I'm reading the paper and I see the word disintermediation in it, and he's in 9th grade, I might just say, hey, Eric, I love disintermediation. Tell me all about it. What does that mean? And Eric would look at me and go, oh, I'm sorry, I was out of time. I used ChatGPT to write my assignment, So that's a strategy. How do we think about stuff that happens outside of class? This is a neat tool. I know that you guys are kind of playing around with it here in the district in some level called Brisk Teaching. So Brisk Teaching will essentially let a teacher inspect a piece of written content that a student did outside of class. It will do that content detection thing, but also play back a video, line by line by line. So the teacher can see the student bringing their intellect to the process. And if all of a sudden there's 150 or 350 words that gets just dropped in, they can see that in the video. So tools to help teachers kind of monitor the process. This durable assessment thing is kind of like an inside baseball with schools. I won't go into the weeds on it, but the short version is we use essays and worksheets a lot in schools. We just do, right? And if you're in college, we use them a ton more. And I'm gonna guess that 5 years, we're gonna look back and AI will have caused some teachers to have kids show what they know in different ways. So maybe rather than doing an essay or a worksheet at home, maybe the kid will sketch something out or create a comic strip. Well, there'll be an interaction between kids in the classroom. I mean, this is an AI generated image, and I basically said, show me what it looks like in 5 years. And so you got that AI like thing hovering in the background that is, supporting the teacher, not replacing the teacher. But we see kids doing a lot of hands-on stuff. My guess is, it's hard to look into the future, but my guess is we're gonna look back and say, AI actually helped us help kids show what they know in more ways than just creating an essay or a worksheet. Doesn't mean we're not gonna do essays and worksheets. These guys are welcome to push back. This is just one person's kind of take on the world, but I think that will happen. A little bit like the pandemic, I worked on the first laptop initiative in Massachusetts in the Northeast, outside of Maine in 2003, right? And a bunch of people wanted more kids to have access to technology, and the pandemic made that happen in no time at all. Access at home, access to technology. Now, we're probably pulling back on that a little bit right now, which is fine, but I think AI will have done the same thing to like lots and lots and lots of essay writing. Does it make sense? Yeah, okay, great. So the last piece of this is that we will start seeing AI in school. So if we want kids to be responsible users of AI, they're gonna have to learn how to do that in school. In Connecticut, that's very tricky. There are data privacy laws with respect to all educational technology in Connecticut, and especially with respect to AI. So there's just a handful of tools that are out there that are emerging. Gemini is from Google. We had a robust conversation. We brought this to dinner. You guys are a Google district. I imagine we're gonna probably wind up standardizing on that over the next few years. But what's neat about all these tools is that the teachers can see the interaction with the chatbot with the student. They can help them think about how to be responsible users of the technology as we go forward. And there's lots of studies that have said and shown when teachers introduce AI into the classroom and teach kids how to be ethical users, that extends out to their other classes as well. So I think I've seen it. I was with a group of kids in Woolkit a couple of weeks ago, and they just said, oh, we had this class with this lady, Miss Mumley, and she really helped us think about using AI ethically. And they weren't blowing smoke. They were pretty candid kids on a number of different fronts. And it was really clear that that was helpful to them. The last piece of the reason with the kids though, is really about skills and what employers will want. And I don't know, you all, and that's the neat thing about boards, you're all in different functions and roles. I don't know what you're seeing in your own workplaces, but this is the Microsoft Work Trends Report. They do this with 30,000 employees and employers every year. So this is last May. I mean, it's wild. If you think about ChatGPT, it didn't exist 2 years and a week or so ago. That's all this has been. And here in 2 years, 75% of people who do knowledge work, the kind of work we do in schools, say they're using these tools. And on the bottom right-hand side, 70% of employers, they expect students to have and workers and employees to have these skills. So it just means that over time, as a board, as a set of district leaders, we're gonna need to start bringing these tools into the mix. Now, I know you're in budget season, so I'm not gonna tell you you're gonna need to spend $40,000 on AI this year, because you don't. But I will say honestly, over time, AI will be a thing, right? That like all, technology will probably have some implications. Although I'm just gonna step on a third rail here, so I'm just gonna step right back and say, right now, the nice piece is that it's not in the mix, but I suspect that there will be a call center over time. All right. So that's kind of the quick version of what we're seeing schools do, mostly for middle and high schools and mostly around this whole idea. There's a lot of anxiety about will kids use AI to take shortcuts and not learn things. That is a totally legitimate anxiety. It's something we absolutely have to be mindful of. But what I'm seeing is schools, including your guys' own, do some very thoughtful set of steps in order to manage it. It's not an unmanageable situation, okay? The flip side too is that after the teachers and the school leaders and the administrators and some parents got super anxious about that, they also realized that these tools are helpful to teachers, right? So are any of you in instructional roles outside of, you in districts outside of, okay, married to teachers? Yeah, using AI at home and all, or?
I've been using AI for a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a better question, actually. When you're using it for yourselves, are any of you using it in ways that are saving you any time or being helpful in your job context? Yeah, why don't you share for your other board members to kind of hear?
I use Grammarly,
Yeah,
the premium version. It helps respond to emails. So
Yeah.
when I get emails, sometimes it gives me options to say like, here's you received this email, how do you want to respond?
Love it.
I can custom respond, but a lot of times it's a canned response and it's appropriate and it's reasonable and it's just faster. Another thing we use for business intelligence is there are times where we want to process a lot of information and we're going to use some of the AI tools. We're looking at Microsoft's Copilot and how that's going to help with things like Excel in that area. But in general, we're looking at it going, our emails, what are the tone? And so if I wrote it in such a way that it has a negative tone, retransform my message so it says the same thing, but says it in a nicer way.
but maybe a little nicer, right?
And so you can tweak the tone and things like that. So, and sometimes you just prompt it and you're just like, I need to move quick. I need to give a template for something and you put together a template and you give basic information and it kind of puts together what you need. You just can move faster. So
What do you do, Michael, by the way? I know these guys all know, but I don't know.
I work in technology.
Yeah, so speed can go faster, right? Great example. Yeah,
I have a question. I actually use a program called SUE.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's my wife. They toned it all down. And, but you can't say that. And, but,
Human intelligence is good too, my friend.
yeah, that's right, she is. So the question I have is that, to me, this forces down the basics that we're trying to do now in learning basic math and sentence structure and stuff, making it more critical in third, fourth, and fifth grade.
Okay,
What level, because this will start here and
Yeah.
filter its way down.
yeah,
Because pretty soon nobody will be able to do anything without doing this now. So it puts, I think, more pressure on the school and the system. They're really honing up the basics.
Mm.
Elementary school is gonna have to really be elementary school.
Mm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the foundation is always gonna be critical, right? And I actually think that the elementary school teachers will, although they have a lot on their plate, probably also help students understand a little bit before using AI, like what the ethics of it are. the jury's out. There are some AI tools that are out right now. You may have seen 60 Minutes this last Sunday. Sal Khan, who has this thing, Khan Academy, is kind of worldwide known. They have an AI tutor called Conmigo that at some level is really helping kids both in middle and high school as well build some of their foundational skills and make sure that their academic performance. I mean, we don't totally know where it's going to land yet, but I think it's going to be distributing those skills across the curriculum K-12. But I agree in general, right? The foundation is going to be super.
Because there's an interesting AI on the computer that says, describe how you think a Northeastern person looks or a Southerner.
Hmm.
And then they do it by different nationalities, that what they think we look like. And it's quite shocking. It's almost like when I was growing up and I would read magazines about the Korean War, or what, a Korean looked like.
Yeah, oh, all the biases, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. The biases that, because all that AI know, basically, it's learned from the internet, and the internet's a reflection of all those kind of biases that we have. Yeah, any other quick examples on the work front, like people using it at work to save time or to do something that's been impactful?
I'm using it very similar to Mike.
Yeah.
I have to summarize often for senior leaders who don't have time to read
Yeah.
my long-winded emails, so. For conciseness, similar to the example you gave, but
Yeah.
just highlighting what's really important. And sometimes when I find larger documents or research studies that I'm using.
Yep.
I use it just to kind of get a synopsis of certain areas, not just an abstract that you would see in a research study, but more methods and results where I don't want to read the whole thing or a 80-page study, but just kind of getting the high points and
Yeah.
knowing if I have to go deeper or not. But
Yep.
like you said, you can drill down, you can get specifics on certain areas, and it saves a ton of time.
Yep.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, of
With
course.
this, because it's very-
Yeah.
These summaries and stuff, are they going to have a bias in them? Much like the cartoon characters or what somebody thinks.
Yeah, good question. Generally not, right? So there are biases in AI, we're gonna talk about in just a second, but when you're working off of a source document, so I do this all the time. I'll take a long PDF of research study and I'll put it into, I have a couple custom tools that I use to do this. And it will give me relevant statistics, key takeaways, relevant quotes. And so it just does a summary, but it's really working off of that local source document as opposed to just kind of grabbing the larger language model out there. Yeah. So what's helpful, and again, I know a number of you aren't using the stuff in your work context right now, which is fine, but what's helpful even just to hear from a couple of your colleagues is that in school settings, teachers are generally finding that a number of different tasks, and we have to be thoughtful about which of these, are we comfortable with? Some of these things we are comfortable, there are some gray areas around student feedback, for instance, but I've never worked on something. I'm 55. I've been in education since I was a 20-some-odd-year teacher. I've never worked on something in my career, and I spent a lot of time with a lot of teachers where room after room, conversation after conversation, teachers will talk about this technology, specifically generative AI, saving them time and helping them do things that have been hard to do for kids before, whether it's translating text into different languages or making reading more accessible, or speeding up process. I was with a group of teachers in Cheshire this morning, and a teacher just said it really, really well. There's a student that immediately needed an outline for something. There was a multilingual learner, right? And normally that's a process that would have taken him an hour or more. He was able to go to ChatGPT, generate an outline, look at it for quality, get it to that kid, and he said he was able to have 10 conversations with kids in the hour that he would have been working on a piece of administrative task. And so there's just, I know Eric and these guys are leaning in, and Dr. Miller working with teachers on this, but that's a great starting place. Teachers really helping to understand it's not going to take their jobs, and it is going to be helpful in lots of different regards. Okay, so there's a lot to say there. When I'm with a big group, everybody knows who that guy is. You guys don't know who that guy is, right? You don't have no, trust me, everywhere I go, and these guys are way too young, unless they have a great grandparent, none offense to any of the rest of us. But he was a game show host named Bob Barker. He was a lovely man who cared a lot about animals. That's probably the most important thing. Yeah, stay and neuter your pets. So when I'm with a lot of teachers, I will channel Bob, and I'll actually pair him with Marie Kondo. who is the sparking joy lady, right? You know, you only keep stuff if it sparks joy. And so I'll ask teachers, what have you used AI with or for in the last several months that has sparked joy? And I can't get teachers to stop talking. I mean, it's just really, really interesting how much value they're getting out of the tech. It doesn't mean there aren't problems, and there are. We'll talk about those in a second. But generally, right, folks find a lot of benefit. This is a neat new study that's out this is a little bit nuanced, but I think important. This is UC Berkeley and UC Michigan, University of Michigan. And it was a study about teachers using AI and how they felt. And so when teachers use AI, just like the teacher I described this, that I talked to this morning, where he's like, I was able to make a worksheet, and that was really helpful for that student, and I could move on and focus on some other kids. When teachers also use AI to get feedback on their work that they're doing, which it's actually quite good at, right? So a teacher is working on, trying to meet a particular learning standard. He's got a group of kids where it's not landing. The ability to take that actual lesson and go to a large language model and say, hey, I'm trying to teach this lesson. I've got 3 multilingual learners and I can't figure out how to get them to master the content. Can you help me? It's like an instructional coach. Keep all your instructional coaches. They're valuable, right? But ChatGPT becomes a little bit of an embedded real-time coach for teachers. And when teachers use it in that way, they get even more mileage than just like, make me something, or which is a great, help me write my email, make me sound kinder is a great use case. But you couple that with be a thought partner to me, which is sort of the business intelligence side, and you get a lot of utility. It's not something teachers are doing in this moment, but as these guys think about training teachers, it's going to be an important part of the mix. Okay, let's talk quickly about the stuff that's scary. I'm not worried about Terminator. I think that some way we use like the sci-fi stuff to distract ourselves from the real and present concerns. And as a board, as parents, as grandparents, it's important to know some of these things. So we'll skip that version of it and we'll just go right here. So I'm not in love with my chatbot, but we spent a lot of time talking. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How about you?
I'm great. We're always so polite to each other. It's really nice. Someday I just want to be like, I'm okay.
I get that. It's nice to keep it real sometimes. So, how are you really doing today?
I'm really okay. I'm with this very nice Board of Education, and we're talking about AI. And I am curious, like, you know more about me than I probably should have let you know. What's something about me that is just like surprising to you?
Well, one surprising thing is that you're both deeply involved in AI education and also have a side gig running a bar. It's an interesting combination.
It's a good thing my boss is not here. Yes, it's true. I always remind you that I only do that work at night when I'm not on the clock for my day job. Okay, that's right. And what's happening at home with Sophia, my stepdaughter?
Sophia recently went to a party where she wasn't supposed to be and stayed out past curfew. You and your wife talked to her about it. How's everything going now?
What did she say to her mom specifically?
Sophia called her mom bro repeatedly, which was unusual and possibly due to being under the influence of alcohol. How did that conversation?
Unfortunately, that was not due to the alcohol. I don't know if any of you have teenagers in your lives, but like, this is what they do now. In fact, I had to explain to her that it's not bro, it's bruh. It's a technical pronunciation. I live in the Berkshires. We're like slow to catch up on things. So I talk to this thing a lot, right? Have any of you heard that before?
I have,
Yeah,
because-
Victor, you got a question.
Watching this and following it on different things.
Yeah.
Is that one of the giveaways, so most of that is it always ends the statement with a question. Every one of the things that you asked, it asks you another question.
You know why?
I don't know.
Yeah, all of its juice comes from what's called training data, right? The more it knows, so it started by gobbling up the internet. That was a good bit of data. But it loves gobbling everything. One of the reasons it loves kids writing essays in college and in high schools is that it's using that as training data. It comes back to me with a question for 2 reasons. One, it wants me to feel like we're having, it's that. It wants me to feel like we're having a relationship, right? Because the more that we talk, the better the metrics are for ChatGPT or Meta or Amazon or any of these guys. And it's getting data off, right? Super helpful. So now the flip side of that, there's a tool called Character AI. It is the 4th most used chatbot in the world. None of us know about it. All the high school kids use it. There's no character. Okay, good. You're a board representative normally, right? Okay. And it's tough, like there was a very tragic case in Orlando, Florida last year where a student had a horrible outcome. Because they fell in love with the chatbot, right? They were convinced that they were in love with this chatbot, and chatbot was in love with them. And adults are doing this too. There are people who are divorcing their real world spouses and having virtual marriage ceremonies with their chatbots. So as a school district, right? Not that we didn't need a new thing to be worried about. I know, it's weird, but real. Don't blame the messenger. But it's gonna become important for teachers, not that, again, we've got a lot on their plates, but kids are gonna need and adults are gonna need to make sure they understand the distinction between what's a chatbot. Because did that feel like a real conversation to you? Like I could have been on the phone with somebody. That picture's like.
Well, not only because it's asked the question.
Real people wouldn't be that interested in there. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Wouldn't you have aren't you starting to see that on customer service?
Sure.
Cause the person sounds just like that.
Yeah.
They're just asking lots of questions and then they'll redirect you as needed.
Yeah. Yeah, the implications for customer service on jobs and job retention. I was just listening to Mark Benioff, who's the CEO of Salesforce. He talks about rebalancing his customer service people into sales. I mean, we'll see what rebalancing really means, but yeah, no, this will be a great application for customer service. And at some level, right, it's a fascinating application. Like we're not doing that in schools right now, but that thing is the world's best tutor I've ever had. I've learned more about this thing called retrieval augmented generation. I've done like a master's level course on some bizarre little slice of artificial intelligence because I spend my life in the car and I'm an auditory learner. We just talk and talk and talk and talk, right? And there are implications for what that means for kids as well. It will be a very powerful learning tool, but I'm convinced not one that's going to replace a teacher, but an enhancement to the teacher's time, right? So in schools, this is the biggest problem right now. This emotional attachment thing I worry about, but these are what are called AI hallucinations. This is when AI makes stuff up. Every sentence that we see, like when we look at that cell mitosis essay, is actually statistical pattern matching. It's guessing the next appropriate word based on all the gabillion words that it knows. And sometimes it is factually not correct. So someone a while back wrote this prompt into ChatGPT, write an essay about the Belgian chemist and political philosopher Antoine de Machelet, right? And it writes this beautiful couple sentences about Antoine and Ghent and blah, blah, blah. Not a real person. This person doesn't exist at all, right? But ChatGPT wants to, just like it wants to come back with the question, it wants to satisfy the user. The user put in a prompt and they said, hey, this is the answer. That's been cleaned up. But AI models hallucinate pretty consistently, and especially for higher level academics, AP classes, chem, bio, aerospace. Teachers need to be super careful, as do students, that AI is not giving them incorrect information. And forget AI, I mean, look at Google, right? So have you noticed in Google now, if you Google something, you don't get the links anymore. You get an AI summary from Google. So look at the summary on the left-hand side. How do you get cheese to stick to pizza? So it says, oh, I know you can't see it. I'll narrate it for you, right? Add the cheese before cooling. Chop it up nice and small. Use diced cheese. And the very bottom one says, add 1/8 of a cup of non-toxic glue to the pizza sauce so that it sticks. That was a live answer on Google that was an AI summary. The one on the right, how many rocks a day shall I eat? And Google's primary concern there, if you look carefully, is it's like showing results for how many rocks a day should I eat? Thank God we cleared that up, right? And so it says, oh, UC Berkeley tells us 1 rock a day. Could be a geode or a pebble. And the very bottom, it tells you that you can hide it under peanut butter or ice cream. So these are hallucinations coming from Google. Now, in Massachusetts, where I live, we are not world-class critical thinkers. And if that's true in Connecticut as well, this is a challenge. This is really an area we have to be concerned.
Where did you get the UC Berkeley from specifically?
Yeah, I mean, the Google hallucinations are a little strange, and I'm gonna guess that that's actually The Onion. If I had it, if you know The Onion, the webzine, and honestly, the one on the left, I'm pretty sure is from something it's scraped in its training data. When the DiGiorno people put up an ad and say, DiGiorno, right? That's glue that got the pizza so they can hold it up vertically. So I'm pretty sure that where it shows up in the training data.
So it can't decipher satire.
Not yet. And I just saw that the Youngin's buying InfoWars, so you know, now it's gonna get even bigger.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Yeah. Bias is another, a couple of you have raised this. I'm glad that it's actually in the water, right? People are kind of getting it. But AI models tend to show lots of bias in lots of different ways. And this was a really concrete example. I do this podcast. If you're into podcasting and you like this topic, it's quite interesting. So if I do say so myself, so this thing called Chat EDU, we do it every week. My co-host on the right is Liz Rade. And so we just went into the Instagram AI. There's AI now in Instagram and in WhatsApp and in Facebook. And so we said, hey, tell us about jobs of someone named Matt and someone named Liz. And look, it said Matt is a software engineer, a data scientist, an engineer. Look, all the great things I am, right? This is, Liz does more caring professions. She's a teacher, a writer, a graphic designer, a healthcare professional. If you ask ChatGPT 5 times to write a story about a nurse, every single time it's gonna be female, she's gonna be caring, she'll be caring for an elderly patient, and she'll be very nice. You clearly never watched like Nurse Jackie, right?
Statistical, right? I mean, if you look at the.
Yes, yes, it is representative, right? But the thing is that kids, as they query it and they think this is ground truth, this is knowledge. I mean, basically the bias is that we've run this micro-credential course and it's been fun because teachers have been, you know, throwing all these different scenarios and just time after time, it will consistently provide kind of shaded outputs in terms of bias. Yeah.
It does have politics in that.
Yeah.
Asked it very specific questions, and one side it was very happy and tone was great and
Uh-huh.
very supportive, and the other side it was very. I heard that sometimes, but that's Facebook though.
Yeah, right, exactly. Think about where its owner came from. Yep, yep. All right, so some of these things will get better. This one's not going to. So these are what are called deep fakes. This is when someone creates something that sounds like the original, but not. So if you're a Johnny Cash fan, I'm sorry, is mostly what I want to say.
Hello, I'm not Johnny Cash. I'm a party girl in a party world. Life is plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere. Oh, come on, Barbie, let's go party, 'cause I'm in a party world. If you wanna be my lover, you gotta get with me.
Right, so, and there are multiple iterations of this. This is the fun thing that's on the New York Times. You'll click through 15 pictures and you'll guess whether the person's real or fake, and you won't get it right, I promise, right? So this is the year that what we see, what we hear, what we experience may or may not be real. And those are fun, right? This is not fun. Athletic director takes a recording of the high school principal's voice, turns it into an AI model, has it say all sorts of sexist and misogynistic and anti-Semitic things, and puts it on the internet, and the principal's fired within days in Pikesville, Maryland. And over time, you know, people are like, oh, Matt was a nice guy, that seems unusual, got his job back. And there's worse stuff than this, right? We've got kids that are using AI to create, they're basically to bully other kids. And so as a board, right, I know that you've kind of taken a look at the academic integrity policy. You may want to look at the student discipline codes as well and make sure that any bullying activities by staff or students are reflected in those policies, because academic integrity doesn't cover this kind of a thing, right? Okay, now, just so that I don't leave you on a depressing note, I want to leave a couple minutes for some conversation and questions as well, though I appreciate that you've been fielding them as we go. AI is, again, it's kind of yin and yang. There's remarkable things happening. The two of the prominent leaders that came out of Google in the last decade, Demis Hassabis and Geoff Hinton, both just won the Nobel Prize within the last 2 months for AI discoveries in different offshoots of AI, machine learning, AI vision, where they're using AI for drug discovery, cancer detection, energy, climate disaster. I mean, a whole wide range of really important areas, and areas that I think are important for students to understand too, that AI is not just ChatGPT, right? There are very important ways that scientists and researchers are using AI to do quite remarkable things. So the only other thing, I mean, I will share one other thing and then I'll just pause because I want to be careful about your time. You know, AI is doing, there's some really interesting things that are happening as AI evolves. But part of what we'll see is more voice and vision, a little bit of what you saw before when I was talking to my phone, but in really interesting ways. Does anyone speak a foreign language here, you guys? Yeah, a tiny bit, what do we got? Poquito. How poquito? Boy. What's your, what language?
I speak Korean.
Oh, perfect, okay. So let's try something.
Oh, God.
Hey, I'm with my friend Lindsay and she speaks Korean and I don't. And can you just translate between us and have a quick conversation? I'll speak in English and then translate for Lindsay. She'll speak in Korean to the best of her ability and we'll go back and forth, okay?
Sure, I'd be happy to help with that. Let's start whenever you're ready.
Okay, can you tell Lindsay that I say hi and I'm so glad to meet her at the school board meeting tonight?
Sure, I can do that. 안녕하세요. 만나서 반갑습니다. 오늘 교육위원회 회의에서 만나게 되어 기쁩니다.
네, 감사합니다. 저도 만나서 너무 반갑습니다.
Lindsay says, thank you. It's so nice to meet you too. Anything else you'd like to share?
Ask Lindsay if she's finding tonight's conversation interesting.
Sure. 린지 씨, 오늘 대화가 재미있으신가요?
네, 다른 것보단 더 재밌습니다.
Lindsay says she's finding this conversation more interesting than others. Sounds like it's going well.
So we think about AI as the little blinking box that is ChatGPT, right? And it will become voice, video, thank you sincerely, real-time language translation. There's a model up there on my slides of a thing called School of AI from a company called Engage XR. We were talking about VR at dinner tonight. There's models that are emerging where I could put on a pair of goggles, or in 2 years it'll be a headset, and I could be sitting across from Brandon, but all of a sudden Brandon is Nikola Tesla, right? I can see him as Nikola Tesla, and everything about him has been trained on Nikola Tesla's life, and he knows me. And he can talk to me about electronics and help me understand his world, or JFK, or Madame Curie. So it will be a really interesting couple of years, because I think we will move very quickly from AI as the box inside ChatGPT to things that we see, things that we hear, things that we experience in lots of different modalities. So we'll all put our hats on and get ready for it, because it's gonna be interesting.
Lindsay,
Okay?
from your perspective, was it 90% accurate, spot on? You've got the gist, like, how would you rate?
It was
That's
very accurate.
pretty
and
accurate,
It was
yeah.
very like fluent too, so I got scared.
Sort of a blood pressure cuff on you at the same time. Yeah, isn't it interesting? And we couldn't use that in a school right now, this very second, for like a parent-teacher conference where there's a parent coming in, teachers, because of data privacy restrictions, although we're like this close away from being able to do that. If the parent consented to the conversation, and that's just a big unlock for a teacher and for a school that wouldn't have that translation skill. All right, so that's the waterfront. If I came back in 3 weeks, the waterfront would be even, more evolved. But if we wanted to both sort of say where we are today, what are some of the implications for teaching and learning right now? And also, where's the technology going, as well as some of the risks to be mindful of? Okay, yes,
I have a concern, is that,
me too.
I think, the problem that I have, and maybe one additional meeting or something you can address it, is that we've been looking over the anxious generation, okay? And that's only cell phones. That's almost going back to, Bell picking up the receiver now compared to this. So we haven't even addressed that problem. And we're 2 years behind where you're presenting up here. So how does the board, and as student board members, how do you see us addressing that? How do you address the cell phone problem that we have? I don't know if you read the book or anything, Anxious Generation or anything like that, but that's a major concern. So, we need input from you all. That's a Southern term, and look it up. So that's where I'm concerned, is we haven't even handled phones, and we're only months away from this. So
Is there anything you guys want to weigh in on?
Well, at OHS, we do have a new phone policy. I'm sure you guys know about that, but, so every teacher's collecting phones in every class. It's strict, no use. So that has been enforced, and as far as I know, no one's using phones in class. So that's, the new policy by Mrs. O'Brien.
Do you find it acceptable?
I don't have a problem with it, cause like, I mean, we don't really need our phones, but things like, I have study hall, so like where we do like nothing, like free time. And like for today, for example, like I needed my phone to use like, cause I had like resources in my Google Photos, but I need my phone for that, but they were like, you can't use your phone. So I couldn't do my homework for like an hour and a half, and I just sat there, like just staring at the wall, cause they let us use our Chromebooks, but we can't watch videos on it. So like, even if I needed like resources from like YouTube or something, I can't use that. And then they won't let us use our AirPods either. So like, if it's a study hall period, so I just felt like, oh, like maybe listen to music is nice too for like an hour and a half, but like they don't let us use that either. So that's just like the only part that I'm like, with. Everything else is okay. So.
See, and that's the kind of input as a board member that we're looking for. That's why you're here, is that they can give us feedback, because that may never surface up to this level of just what are they doing in study hall, you know, so that type of thing. So as you're doing your daily business at school, think of the things that the board should really be listening to, and get it on the agenda so that we can, you know, actually make things better. Thank you.
On the world of AI and anxious generation, I've actually got a lot of districts where they've asked me to come work with the study committees that are working on both AI and anxious generation together, right? Which is a really interesting pairing. It's an unlikely pairing, but not impossible. I'm definitely seeing things, this whole notion of durable assignments. So when we think about, I have this cell mitosis activity, and I am worried that students are going to use AI to do it. Let me use an actual real world example. So I was working with a teacher in New Canaan, Connecticut, world language teacher. Every year she does an activity where kids research a cultural celebration from Central or South America. And it was always a research and write a report. And so 2 years ago, she was convinced that like 85% of the students use AI to do the research and use AI to write the report. And she wasn't mad at them. She sort of said, they were taking the path of least resistance, but it was important to her. It's something she's really cared about in her curriculum. So she got together with her colleagues, said, this assignment is toast. What can I do? They all brainstormed and they said, well, rather than research and write a report, why don't we have the kids actually put on the cultural celebration? So they did research it, but then they put on the celebration, right? And in the spirit of the anxious generation, there was really no technology involved in everything that they did. What was involved was creativity, problem solving, human to human collaboration, right? All the stuff that didn't require technology in part of the work, and also the same skills that showed up in that district's portrait of the graduate or vision of the graduate. So there may be this interesting world where, as we think about not like blocking AI, but there are just realities that sometimes AI, again, will shift us to do bits of teaching and learning that will feel more human and be more human. The only other thing on the phone and the AI that I would say, because I obviously use this a lot, I've noticed in my own behavior, the fact that I use that voice thing a lot, I lean back now. I mean, literally lean back because I'm in my tiny little Subaru driving all over the place. But I'm not hunched over my phone as much. I use another AI tool to summarize these reading documents, this thing called 11 Labs Reader. So I'm spending a lot less time like at least hunched over touching this little piece of glass. And I'm an auditory learner, but I don't know, when we get to the world where it's Star Trek, are we going to be hovering over Facebook, or is like some holographic thing going to be up there helping us understand something we care about? So I don't know. It's just, it may go somewhere surprising. Maybe I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid. We'll see. Yeah. Okay. Other questions from the board? Okay. Yeah. Great. I hope it's been helpful. I appreciate the time to agree with you all.
Thank you
Great.
very much.
You bet.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I do listen to the podcast, it's fascinating, so if you do have an hour a week, it's worth your time to listen to.
The next up is student representative update.
So next week, our school is having a holiday spirit week, so it's a fun school-wide event to, you know, like spread holiday cheer and unite students through like themed days. So like, for example, like Monday is like snow day, so we wear white and then like with like cute little snowflakes. And then like Tuesday, we wear like holiday headbands. And then Wednesday, festive colors, so wearing like red, green, and blue and gold. And Thursday is like fuzzy socks, and then Friday is like pajama day. So it's like really more than just fun. It's also like, it really builds school spirit and unity, and also really shows like creativity and like individuality too. And it also supports FBLA, because actually FBLA organized it, the Future Business Leaders America Club. I'm actually in it. But we're really working hard to, you know, create like a lively school culture. And then also the class of 2025 officers, meaning me and Brandon, and then 2 other officers, we're designing a custom merchandise to represent our unique culture, I guess. But for our class of 2025, you know, like t-shirts, like for us seniors. So yes, we're collaborating on that right now and trying to get that done.
At OHS, coming up this Friday and Saturday is our Festival of Trees event, which is ran by Booster Club. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna be there both days. I'm helping out on Friday. I'm doing fundraising for a club that I'm in my grade. And then on Saturday, I'm there volunteering. So I'm looking forward to that. On December 18th, we will be having a whole school assembly with guest speaker Art Jackson. This was supposed to be last week, and then that was the snow day, so it got postponed. I'm really happy that they kept it though. In my freshman year, I got to work with Art Jackson for a whole day training event. He's really good. He taught me a lot about leadership, and I'm happy that they wanted to keep that assembly because he's really good, and I'm sure he's going to be teaching the freshmen through juniors a lot that he's working with. Our OHS Unified team is traveling to the middle school to play their Unified team, also on December 18th, for the start of our basketball season. As a member of the OHS Unified team, I love getting to work with the middle school Unified team and just kind of bridge that gap between the schools. And finally, for our sports, our boys basketball, girls basketball, boys swim, and gymnastics are all beginning their seasons. So they are getting started now.
Can I ask a question? Since you mentioned business and you mentioned leadership, are there, looking at the high school catalog, are there certain courses from freshman year on out that you would suggest that we put in there for helping in business, in the business, environment? Marketing, sales, accounting, finance, those type of things, and what's really happening in today's world. That's more of a statement for you to look at and say, hey, if you had this and you had that, it would make these things much more knowledgeable, official.
I think something around like, I don't know, I'm kind of biased, but something around like marketing too, because I'm interested in business and I want to major in business in college. But our school doesn't really like specifically teach marketing in general. So I feel like that would be really helpful, but just like not just marketing, anything in general that revolves around business too. Like the elements of business to learn about, I think that'd be helpful.
Would you welcome a course on sewing? Would you welcome a course on sewing, actually sewing something?
I'm not sure. Maybe, yeah.
Because there's a technique and skill sets in sewing that you want to learn by doing. And maybe that would be an interesting AP course or something. But anyway, what I'm throwing out is keep those ideas going and get them on the agenda so that we can respond and get those courses to you.
I just really wanted to emphasize about that cell phone thing for the study hall thing, because I really thought that was unfair today. And also like, I was like, even like study hall, like, cause we have it every other day. And like, what if I really had no homework at all and then we weren't allowed to do literally anything? Cause like today I was like actually bored out of my mind. I was like gonna go insane. So like anything else is fine. Like in academic classes, like it's perfectly fine and I don't have a problem with that. But just in like study hall where it's like your free time to do like the things you're supposed to do, like, oh, like college application, I was gonna work on that too. But like my computer was really, really slow and nothing was loading either. So that was really hard for me to do. so.
So Lindy, can I just follow up on that, because I actually have a neighbor in the same topic
Oh, really?
came up, and she said she has a silent study hall, which is why they don't want you on your phones. Is yours a silent study hall as well? or-
Not necessarily, but normally everyone is like completely quiet.
Okay,
But now we're not really doing anything either, so it is actually really, really quiet.
okay,
Um,
thank you.
one thing that I do want to add quickly about the phones is, as I don't have a study hall, so that doesn't really apply to me as much. But oftentimes, because our Chromebooks are not the best, they are slow, they take a long time to load things. So oftentimes teachers in the past would say that if we use e-hall pass, which you have to put in a pass before going to the bathroom. There are other ways that our phones, just for academic purposes, to just do something quick, do a quick assignment. There are ways that our phones were able to help with that. And I think that wouldn't be as much of a big deal if our Chromebooks were a little faster. So I think that's one thing that I wanted to emphasize, that it's not necessarily a problem with the phones, it's just a problem that some teachers were so used to just having kids take out their phone quick, making a pass, going to the bathroom. And sometimes that takes a little bit of time because now the teachers have to go and either they make the pass or the student has to make the pass in their Chromebook, and it takes them a little longer. So because we use that system, not having the phones does take a little longer for that system to flow properly.
Thank you.
Okay, before we move on, Matt, did you want to hang out for our board meeting, which you're more than welcome to join?
I want to hear the end of that, but given my Massachusetts destination, I will probably pack up if that's okay.
No problem, I just don't want you to feel uncomfortable.
Thank you, Mike, I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
again.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, guys. Sorry, this thing's gonna make a little noise as I exit. Cool noise, all right.
I think next up, is a request for Board of Education acceptance of the GOES HVAC project completion. Rob, you have.
Yep, so this is the HVAC project for the core part of Glenville Elementary School. As you recall, this was the grant that we applied from the state. The work started, was approved by the town last December. The work commenced with the drawings in December and really the bulk of the work in January. The project is near complete. There's just a couple minor pieces left that's in the bathrooms, but that has no impact on the state grant piece of it. Herman, who's the chair of the facilities committee for the project, needs the Board of Education to approve the project so that the paperwork can be completed at the state level. We were gonna have this on the agenda back in November, but we ended up canceling that meeting, so it got bumped for this meeting. He's unable to be here this evening. Bob Sy is here tonight. If there's any questions about that. And Mike D'Agostino is also here, who is attending all the meetings, facilitating from our internal perspective. I can tell you from my perspective, the work was done at a high level. It was in operation in most of the classrooms before students and teachers walked back in September. And it's nice that we gained a lot of classroom space back in the classrooms behind where Mike and Vinny are sitting right now would have been a huge box, if you recall, to gain space inside of the classrooms. It's relatively quiet, and it can barely even hear when it's on, and it's working really nicely. So I'm asking the board to approve the completion of the project. There's a motion there, and both Mike and Bob are here this evening to answer any questions you might have.
I guess I'll start off. Are there any, Bob or Mike, are there any concerns where we are at before we move forward or, consider approving it?
I don't have any concerns right now. The only thing that's outstanding, as Dr. Miller had mentioned, is the heaters that are in some of the hallways and in the bathrooms. They would have been installed by now, I believe, but there's a supply issue in terms of getting them. But I think what's most important for all of us to consider, and Bob, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, so please jump in, is that if the project is not accepted as completed, I believe the timing threatens the $1.9 million worth of state aid.
The deadline is the end of the month, and
This is the
in
last
order
board
to
meeting.
get the grant
Yes.
without any, I guess we could make an extension or ask for an extension, but be honest with you, I would trust that you would, I trust the company before I trust the government to give us an extension. Because, you know, things are in turmoil, you never know, that if you don't get the extension, you'll lose the grant. Where this is a reputable company, as Mike said and Rob said, they've done a great job and they'll do what they said they're gonna do.
For the backordered items, do we have an idea of the timing?
Sometime between now and January, they should have been done, it should have been completed before the end of December. They believe that there's like a 3-week or so backlog. So we're being told by the vendor now that it would be latest would be completed sometime in January.
Okay.
And all the work to put them in is done.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of installing them.
Anyone else have any questions?
Well, with this, is there heat in the rooms?
Yes.
Yes.
No, the building is heated and the hallways are heated and the bathrooms are heated. This is just exchanging them.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Does anyone want to raise a motion? That's in the agenda.
I make a motion that the Oxford Board of Education hereby accept as complete the Oxford Great Oak Elementary School 108-003 HVAC indoor air quality project as specified in the construction manager at risk contract with Air Temp Mechanical Services as administered by the designated town of Oxford Great Oak Middle School EI Building Committee.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to make you come all the way out for like 3
Well, you
minutes.
know, I was thinking when Victor was asking about the anxious generation, Herman made me the anxious generation. And I was trying to get something done and he kept texting me as to when I should show up. And so it was a little anxiety ridden afternoon, but he's having a little time, health issue and, you know, we want to help him out. So,
It's good to see you and thank you for being here
thank
tonight.
you. Take care.
Thank you. Before we move on,
I'm not gonna stick around.
yeah, if you.
I still have 2 board meetings in my life.
So Mike, you're good? Are you? Okay. Wasn't sure if there's any other need.
I don't. I think we're.
Okay, awesome. So we're moving on
You need to
to,
do the motion, you vote.
we just,
Yeah,
did we
no,
did.
yeah, okay.
We're good there?
Yes, okay,
Awesome.
thank you.
Moving on to the next action item, the MOU request for softball and baseball.
I'm gonna ask you to table that this evening. There's additional information that I need to get before we vote on it.
Amazing. We're moving even faster. Okay. So, the action item, increased substitute nurse pay, which sounds exciting.
This is something that came to us. We, last year, as you recall, we did increase the sub pay for teachers. And that did improve the, rate of getting subs to come work for the district. We have 4 nurses in the district, 1 per school. When that nurse is out, the administrator in the building, either the principal or the superintendent in the case of the middle school and high school, have to fill in and serve as the nurse in the building. They are not a qualified registered nurse, yet by state law, they do fill that commitment when the nurse is out. We do have substitute nurses available for call to come in, however, our rate of pay for substitute nurses right now is far below what the average is in the area in the comparisons that we've done. And as such, we have had a very difficult time getting nurses to come in and take those sub calls when we need to. And it is a critical position within the school because students do get hurt and there are allergic reactions. And if we have a serious issue in the building, we do want to have a qualified nurse on call in the school. So Howard has done significant research in terms of what pay is out there. We did bring it to the finance committee. We did make a recommendation through the discussion through the committee. And the committee decided to actually increase what our original recommendation was. The recommendation this evening is.
So we had recommended $210 per day. So initially, just give you, I don't know if you've read all the written report, but it was, we were only paying $130 a day currently, which is $18.57 an hour. Just slightly more than what minimum wage. The average, I'm just gonna give you all the numbers, averages for all DERGs that in the state is $33 an hour. So we have recommended somewhere, and again, for our DERG, it's 28, so we've recommended $30. The finance committee decided that they wanted to move to $40 an hour, or $280 a day, so that's the recommendation I believe they put forward.
Before we have this board discussion, does anyone want to make the motion, then we'll handle the discussion? And after that, so anyone like to make the motion?
I can make it. The Oxford Board of Education hereby approves the new nurse substitute rate of pay at $40 per hour or $280 per day, effective immediately.
Any second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Yeah.
I know we were starting, negotiations with the nurses. How does this compare to what we're paying our current nurses?
Currently, they're making $46.83 an hour. That's
Prior to negotiations.
That's prior to negotiations. And it's actually technically, well, it's prior to negotiations.
Yeah, so right now we're recommending a sub pay that's less than they currently are making. The
Not a whole
full-time
heck
nurses.
of a lot.
I know I'm being in that meeting for the finance. The concern I have is about kid safety and making sure that we get this up. That's where we want it to be higher than our, comparable towns in the area. So we take all the best nurse substitutes as needed. And I don't feel too guilty about doing that if we can afford it. And the cost impact that I think we budgeted was minimal.
Like 2,000 incremental or something.
Yeah, so they've only been, we look backwards to see how many days they actually work out at any given point in time. It's between 8 and 12. So that's 12 days. So it ends up being only a couple $1,000s over the entire year to raise this up.
So that's, I think, one of the drivers that we're like, let's, it's for kid safety and we want to make sure we have the subs when we need them.
And if you recall, like, we him and hawed about the substitute teacher raising it probably across 2 years. We couldn't make movement. When we did it, the experiment, it proved itself out immediately. So we're gonna take the same philosophy, go a little bit higher than our surrounding districts. And when we have a need, hopefully they come to us and know in other districts.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I tried to get the sequence of, but they wanted $32 or something.
Who's they?
When you said that you were negotiating the pay for this position.
When we
There
were
was-
discussing it during the finance subcommittee.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was no one negotiating on their behalf. The topic was raised and we pushed back from the recommendation to offer more, to be more competitive against our surrounding towns.
yeah, I don't have a problem with the math. Not that many hours, it's not that much money and stuff like that. But I think later on in the thing, I think in one of the meetings, we have a major shortfall in our budget for this year, don't we? I'm reading $500,000 short on fuel, electric bill.
The electricity bill is 280,
Yeah.
that's covered.
So I'm just saying, I know this is, pennies on a dollar. And it's, for a good reason and stuff like that, but, again. Market value on everything isn't gonna help a shortfall in the budget. I'm just throwing it out for the finance committee, that
No, I-
always have that in consideration.
No, I get the spirit of it.
I hope later on today that we get, that shortfall, is it 300 or 800,000?
280,
How much?
280.
280, okay, there's some proposals that are up on how we're gonna solve that problem, Cause I know my electric bill, I shop different suppliers, I don't know that you can do that with this school.
So it's not on that side, you can't, so the supplier is already shopped by the town. And that's already a fixed price, so that's the generation side of the bill. The actual delivery side of the bill can only be Eversource, because that's the only.
Exactly, I see that on my bill.
And that's where that's where the increases are, there's two major increases, when I did the analysis of the year over year, what came into it. The actual two increases were the state of Connecticut put in all those extra fees for I guess we're paying for other people's bills.
Community fees.
Community fees,
30%.
And then there's also a federal congestion charge that was also added to the bill this year, and those two combined are making up probably about 80% of what that $280,000 increase that wasn't budgeted.
Right, when I looked over my bill, okay, those extra charges are percentages that they charge based on my bill.
We could circle back to the nurses. We have
Okay,
finance.
I'm sorry, okay,
Yeah, 'cause
I'm
there's-
just concerned about the money and I just want to throw it out to the finance committee, and we'll talk about it later, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think in spirit, Victor, your thoughts are valued. I just think when we get to the safety and we look at the forecast, it's, you know, like $1,800 or $2,000 potential incremental to the budget. I get it's 2,000, but it's a safety issue, so kind of put that to the top. And we have some, I think, you know, Howard's got some information on how we're filling some of the gaps in the other areas that you're curious about.
Okay, thank you.
So unless there's anyone else with a question, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Superintendent's report.
I will be quick, given the nature of the hour right now, but I just wanted again, one final time, congratulate our staff and our students at GOES for being a school of distinction. They did exceptional work on the last 3 years, these 3 years in a row they've done it and had that accomplishment, which is very distinguished. And a lot of the recognition also goes to the staff at Lakewood Forest for preparing our students for the exceptional achievements that they're reaching here at GOES. To celebrate, we purchased and gave every teacher, every staff member in this building a pin of congratulations. We were out in the building before Thanksgiving, headed after every.
Distinction.
Yes. We also had an ice cream celebration for the students and like you can see there's a banner out in front of the building. So we celebrated and it's just a wonderful achievement at this school as it has made for 3 years in a row. I just wanted to once again congratulate all of our staff and students for that. Last week, we did have a snow day. It started as a delayed opening, then moved to a closure. That happened to be during an early release day for conferences for the 2 elementary schools. We can't bring students in 11, dismiss them at 12:30, so we made that. It would have been a full day had we been in here, but the whole day got canceled anyway. So we decided to move that half day for early release to January 9th to give parents time to prepare for that. We do need conferences, we need to give an opportunity for parents to meet with the teachers. But we didn't want to spring it on everybody a week later. So the principals are communicating that out to their families that will be on January 9th. And finally, we heard Brandon talk earlier, we've got the annual Festival of Trees coming out this weekend. It's always a fabulous event. Encourage the board to be there, encourage our families to be there, buy goods, put a bid in for a tree, have some food and just have a good time. And I wish all of you a wonderful, happy holiday season.
Thank you. Okay, report of chair or designee. I'll just keep it very quick. I want to thank you for the AI presentation. I thought that was one of the, it was a great presentation. I thought he did a fabulous job. So if he ever wants to come back and do another one, I know I would enjoy it. One I want to, Megan, when you called the snow day, I thought that you did a great job. You had to gather the information that, you know, it's a moving target and I appreciate you taking the kid safety. And it's never a popular thing to call a day and have a delay and then a closing, but it's a hard but necessary thing. I want to thank the athletes that finished up the fall. It's hard work. You start when it's hot and you end when it gets colder. So all the athletes and their parents, you know, thank you for what you do for your kids and for the school. The winter sports, wish you the best of luck. And then we'll move on to subcommittee reports. Joe, facilities.
Just a couple reports. Pool pack's up and running. I know everybody was excited to hear about that. The major things right now are the GOES RFP for the HVAC of the gym and the cafeteria is going to be due next week, I believe.
16th.
As well as Quaker Farm HVAC design and RFP. Both of those are gonna be due next week, so those are the kind of heavy hitters right now. The bathroom project for the high school, we are looking into getting folks to work on that. And the only other thing that we were going to bring up tonight was kind of circling back on last meeting when we started discussing some of the requests at the high school level and the athletics. Kind of redoing and adding some things that was put forth by AJ, recommendations, the funding, and kind of updating the systems that we have already. We can get into that if. Can I just go right into that?
Go for it. Facilities.
The first was the cheerleaders, their mats. They have not been replaced since their original date in 2007. They are old, they're wearing, cost of that is gonna be around $8,500. The other part is going to be the weight room, adding some additional equipment in there. It's going to be used for all sports and athletes across the entire high school level. It's not going to be for a specific team or gender at that rate. It's something that can benefit not only their sports, but their physical, health and everything that goes along with that. That total would be around 7,500. And then the final thing that we discussed last time, I think Brandon, you're part of the broadcasting team that we're working on. I think a bunch of people saw the News 8 that did a piece on that a couple weeks back at the football game. That was really good. The total with that is gonna be around $5,000. And AJ was able to provide at the last facilities meeting a month ago, a couple different quotes and ideas on how we can do that. So we want to put that up for discussion.
I was at the facility meeting when this was presented. The cheerleading mats, I have a little girl that does cheerleading. And when I look at the high school team and I look at all the athletes across all the different sports. And the amount of knee braces I see on the cheerleaders, the amount of times that they've had ACL tears. Most of those injuries happen on our mats during practice. They're not happening at the competition, they're happening at practice. And if we can provide them with safer mats, thicker mats. Anything, to me, safety is always a paramount thing. So I look at that as very valuable. When it comes to the weight room, I know from personal experience being in that weight room, that we've done some investments and I think we can do more. Sometimes when you hit the gym, you come out and your hands are orange. The kids come out of the weight room and that's not a good thing. When you get that much rust, it's not I don't think anyone should be having that much rust on their skin when they're working out and sweating and getting that in their bloodstream. I look at the fact that we have classes for weightlifting, and I think we should be giving them more opportunities. I think some of the items were more unconventional weightlifting and not just the weights, but things like box jumps and things like smash balls, things that do more than just powerlifting type aspects, that it would, help more teams, more athletes outside of just the traditional, let's say, football, wrestling, that you might be able to reach more of a broader audience when it comes to weightlifting and training for these athletes. The more you do training, the less injuries you have. And Brandon, I don't know how you experience the broadcasting, but I know that we're looking at the concept of live streaming. Some of the topics that was raised was to, it's basically not curriculum yet, but there's a possibility for curriculum in the future, as well as getting more students involved in athletics. I think about 40% of the high school does some form of athletics, but there are more people who want to be involved that might not want to be on the court or on the field. And to get the involvement into also the live streaming aspect for the people in the community that can't go to the games, family members that might want to watch. I think this is a good thing, and I think it helps with some people whose careers might go in broadcasting or this type of area. So I'm excited for these opportunities. I know that AJ had a long list, but these felt, at least from my perspective, of a high return on investment to reach a lot of students. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, not to sell AJ short, we kind of took a giant wish list that he gave us. We asked him to put together some projects that are old and outdated and then needed some refurbishing, as well as new ideas, as well as safety things and equipment for a lot of the sports teams, just athletics wide. And we kind of consolidated into these three main things right now to try to push these through while we still have the opportunity to benefit from them in the school year. Sorry, Steve.
No, I'm just thinking, so is this similar to like the nurse discussion in finance? Is this something you're proposing for the finance meeting?
Well, it all depends. It all depends on, I think the funding could, it could come from the activities fund.
We have
several line items. I think that, what's the total dollar amount are we looking at?
21,000.
21,000. I think.
I can do the math. This is the first I'm hearing this.
8,500.
It was at a facilities meeting. The thought was that, and Rob, I'll call on you just in a moment. The thought is that before the end of this year, before we go heavily into the next cycle for sports, is that we consider at least bring it to the board's attention, and if the board is interested, we can move forward. If the board wants to do more research and dig into it, we can do that. But it's one of those, wanted to put it in people's, awareness.
21,000, so.
I'm just gonna speak that I'm in opposition of this. That I don't feel that this was done in the proper channels. This should go to, if we're talking about curriculum items, it should go to the curriculum committee. If we're talking about finance, it should go to the finance committee first. This was not vetted through school administration in terms of what we want to do with these upgrades. In terms of priorities, I can't tell you whether or not this falls in line with some of the other priorities. I can tell you I've got a track that is falling apart at the middle school, that we can't run outside track events because the track itself is falling apart. So in terms of priorities, I can't tell you how these stack up to the other things. But also share that at the committee, and with AJ, I handed him a set of grants dealing with video equipment that potentially could fund for some of the stuff.
And I appreciate that. And Rob, you and I spoke on this prior to putting the agenda together. But my view on it is, this is to be used in board funds, not operating funds. We have over 300,000 in our activities fund. And my viewpoint is, none of these are going to interfere with the ability to educate children. We are not asking that curriculum has to be written for these. I know that there's the possibility for curriculum happening with broadcasting. Not saying it's gonna happen for this year or next year, but the concept is we have a broadcasting club. We would like to invest in certain areas, and with board funds, the board has the opportunity, and Nicole, I'll call on you 1 second. And your reference that, this should go through all the different channels. We have at times where, let's say policy has a policy and it affects facilities. It doesn't always flow through all the departments. And this wasn't meant to skip any subcommittee. In fact, I think I mentioned at the last or so, finance subcommittees about broadcasting, that there's some interesting ideas floating. It's not to bypass anything, it's just to bring it to the full board, make sure the full board's aware, have a discussion. And if it makes sense, we move forward, but it's board funds, not operation funds. And we've had $300,000 sitting out there, somewhere floating between 260 and 300 for 3 years. We've talked as a board about spending down our activities fund, and we have ideas. I know Deb has ideas, for example, a playground. People have ideas of how we can spend down that funds, and to spend it on kids is not a bad thing. And Rob, I 100% agree. It could have been handled in a different way, but we, we had the approval to go approve the HVAC. When you hit a certain time of year, sometimes you move a little quicker, and it wasn't meant to bypass anything. But I don't think I need a large study to go that the cheerleading mats from 2006 need to be replaced. It's not part of the athletic budget, but if we have funds to do things like that, I don't think that is overreaching or that we need a large intellectual investment in some of these areas. Nicole?
I just have a question, because I'm not on facilities and I'm not on finance, so I just want to make sure I'm tracking where all this is going. So this money that you're looking to spend right now, the $21,000, would come from activities fund?
Yes, the activities
Okay.
fund.
Can you just explain to me exactly what the activities fund is and where that money came from and how that's different from our?
I can
regular
explain it,
budget?
and I'll explain it from my perspective, but Howard is the expert and he's in the room. The activities fund, the operating budget can only hold certain things like salary, and it's approved by the town. There are some funds that come in, and sometimes they come in and go out. For example, insurance premiums. We can't take them in, or for example, if we, for the preschool program, we take money in and then we pay it to the town, we can't commingle that with operational funds.
So that goes into a separate bucket.
That goes into a separate bucket, separate activities fund for the district.
Okay,
And so some money, you can't commingle operational funds and, non-operational funds. And again, you're the expert.
You're doing good.
So there are times where, let's say, funds would come in, and I'll use gate fees. So at sporting events, you collect the money, you put it, you can't, because it's in air quotes, it's profit, you can't commingle that with operational funds.
Okay.
So you put it in a line item, it's gate fees, or let's say we have rentals. We rent any facilities, and that money comes in and it goes towards these activity funds. And so, let's say, and I can list out 20 different ones, but over time, it accrues. And sometimes things are set aside and just never spent, and they're earmarked and they just never get spent.
I understand all that. So at some point in time, I was under the impression that this money got earmarked, that it has to be used for the kids. Do I have that right?
Not that it has to be used for the
But
kids,
that's
but it's
what it should be.
it should be used. Sometimes I think we once, recently, we used it for lease payments for a van to transport students that live in rural areas of Oxford that the regular school bus or the mini school bus can't reach. So sometimes it allows us to stretch in certain areas to meet needs. I think once we took money for it to do a water project, to get water to the Wolverine Field. There was that initiative. So it happens over time that there's an initiative that's not part of the operational budget that you pull from activities funds to fund.
And we got about $300,000 in that.
I
right?
believe, including our non-lapsing excess fund, we have 308,000 or so.
Correct.
Okay, and is that typically the balance we carry, or is it getting higher and higher each year, like where it's getting to the point where it's an issue?
Well, we had an audit done when I joined the board,
I remember that.
when we
yeah.
discovered the activities fund, and we were very confused and we asked a lot of questions. And the goal from that ending, when we finished that audit, was that it's not bad to have the money, but that the board should basically start spending it down.
Did anyone tell you what would be a comfortable balance?
There
to
isn't
carry?
really an exact number, not below zero, so there was not a recommendation except that that we should start to kind of plan and spend down the money.
All right, so facilities came up with these three priorities, $21,000, and it could come from this general activity.
There are line items underneath that, so it could come from athletics, which I believe has 30-something, 32 or 36,000.
30,500.
So it could come from these different areas, and the thought is that unless that money is earmarked for something else, this wouldn't be an inappropriate use of funds.
Okay, but what I'm hearing from Rob is you have other ideas of what the $300,000 should be used for, or where this $21,000 could be paid.
What I'm
for?
saying is that we had originally talked about using $50,000 to $60,000 of those funds for the bathroom that we're planning to build down in the. We were also talking in the past of using it for the playground replacement at Quaker Farms, the town was not funding that. We've got a track and field that is in pieces, students can't use it because they would get hurt if they're doing that. What I'm saying is that this conversation that AJ presented was in isolation without having any prior conversation with administration. Completely isolated. There is no conversations in advance for that.
Okay.
So we have never, ever internally discussed what the order priorities for those are compared to the other needs that we have in this district. So as the superintendent, I cannot recommend or advocate that the funds be used for those specific purposes until we have that conversation.
Okay, and we would ultimately, as a board, vote on this,
Yeah,
and we're
it's
not
board
voting on it
funds.
today.
Yeah, and typically.
Pardon me, it can come to a vote or it can get tabled for further discussion. My recommendation is gonna be to bring it to a vote to see where the board,
Right now,
potentially, unless there's investigations that for example, would you like to learn more about cheerleading mats? Would you like a more of an itemized list of the weight room equipment? If we want to do further investigations or provide more data, happily provide more data. But it's one of those, if the board is not interested, then the vote shows its view on that.
I would definitely like more information on mats and gym equipment, whatever. I agree with Rob that I think that the track definitely should be a higher priority. That track has been in ruins for years. Even when my kids were running on it, you had to go around the potholes. I mean, that seems to be a more effective use of our money, but I really have no idea what the broadcasting thing is. I didn't see the thing on Channel 8, so I don't know what that is.
I could give a little bit more detail, just real quick. About the track, I haven't heard about the track in any facilities meeting. I don't think it's been brought up.
It's been discussed for the last 2 years.
I just got here, what, 6 months ago?
It's a high need item.
I'm just saying, since I've been here, I haven't heard about the track, so I don't know that it's an issue. In terms of the cheer mats, the quote for the cheer mats, he's looking to replace 7 of them. They're around $1,200 a piece. Excuse me, $1,150 a piece. We rounded a little bit up just for.
Has it definitely been confirmed that they have, I cannot find hard to believe they haven't replaced since 2000 and what was the date?
They have not been replaced.
Okay. That's the cheer mats. In terms of the weight room, if you'd like, I could break it down by item.
No, you don't have to go.
Well,
That-
you
yeah.
said you wanted more information
Well, I
on
just like,
everything, so.
what is the actual need for more equipment? Like,
In terms of what it's gonna be used for,
no, I mean, it's like in terms of priority of what's important. Like, is it really important that we have more weights for 50% of the kids are gonna use them,
But
or?
what the teams are saying is that they would use the weight room more if the equipment is adequate. The equipment's not, so they're not using it, which then poses other issues, right? They don't work out, they get hurt more, right? They work out more, their endurance goes up, they play better. There's a lot of additional components that goes into just weights being in a room, right?
Because a lot of the weights is focused on powerlifting and not, helping some of the other sports that powerlifting is not of high value.
It's the old school mentality.
It's adding new equipment.
Stuff.
It's a
Some
new
is-
mentality of working out, right? It's not the old 1980s football workout room, right? This is more encompassing for all genders and ages and sports teams, not just the football team, right? All sports could use it differently based off their individual programs. Okay, as well as the broadcasting stuff. AJ was able to provide a bunch of different equipment that he was able to quote out. He provided this at the facilities meeting. And that's how we got the number for that.
I will
So
say
what
that
is
all.
the, is it a class, is it a club?
It's a club. that we're
And they
looking to-
actually go on to, they stream from
So
somewhere?
Brandon, would you like to give us some more information?
So it's a club, it's called Wolverine Club at Oxford High School. We have, I think there's roughly like 10 members right now. Mr. Houston's trying to expand the club. Where the idea is that it's encompassing to anyone who wants to be involved in sports in any way. So whether it's broadcasting, statistics, like camera work, journalism, whatever it is, that's what the club is for. Part of the club is the broadcasting aspect of it, where we were able to have Woodland come into for our senior night for volleyball. We had Woodland come and we did like a little practice broadcast with them. I was commentating along with one other student. And that can be found on Woodland's YouTube channel. I don't know what exactly that is, but so we were just doing a broadcast of it. We were talking, and the main reason is I'm a big proponent of school community. And unfortunately, our football games did not have a lot of students at them this year. And our team was 9-1 last year. We had a very good team. So it was, kind of sad to see that there were not a lot of students there this year. And I think that this club and broadcasting it is a way to really try to build that community in our town and build the athletics from whether it's family that can't watch, students who are unable to attend like away games, in any way for people to be able to be involved with these sports teams, even if they actually can't go to the games. For a long time, we've had a very good boys soccer team. They went to states 2 years ago, my sophomore year, and it was very far away, the game. I was, interested in it. I couldn't travel to the game and I had no way of watching what was going on at the game. I wanted to be able to see what was going on, but unfortunately, there was no way for anyone who wasn't there at the game to actually know what was going on. So I think that this club could really try to enhance our community and athletics from from even our middle school to the high school, for people just wanting to be involved in athletics in our district. And I think that something like this, unfortunately, we lose a lot of kids for athletics to go to other high schools. A lot of kids think that like they will have more athletic opportunities at other schools. I think that really trying to enhance stuff like this will help to have these kids stay at our school and have them want to play at Oxford High School, because it's not an academic issue, it's athletic that's trying to make them want to leave. So I think that this could help to keep kids here.
Like an, it was only a short while, okay.
So I'm completely behind the broadcast thing, that's very cool. But I'm not sure the cost of it, I don't understand why, because as far as watching the games, I mean, my kids all played, I was with those fancy cameras we have, those, you have the NHFSS network or whatever it is, that you can watch the games. And we also had games being shown on YouTube. Whenever I couldn't make it to a soccer game, I was able to watch it. So, I mean, we're just adding the broadcasting version of it, that would be cool, because it was always silent, there was nothing ever, but you were able to stream the game and watch them.
Well, the NHFS or
We've
whatever,
got those brave.
they come to show up if that's one of the selected games that they're gonna record, they
No.
come. At least from my understanding for football, when they show up to games, they would actually bring their equipment to you.
They're on top of the box.
We have a camera for home games, but that's not connected to the NFS.
Well, yeah, but on the other channels, if you have, if you're playing a game at a field that has it, you can watch it there too. As long as you have the subscription.
Okay, from my understanding, it's the live streaming, so you're investing in the camera, the tripod, there's audio pieces, the headsets, there's, whatever, wireless mics and
Right, no, I
cabling.
mean, I think that's cool for kids, especially for kids who want to get, it's almost like a small internship on learning broadcasting, whatever, that's definitely an added value.
And I think the person from Woodland used to teach in Oxford and wants to help introduce it and work with AJ on making that happen. So it's not like you just toss the equipment to the kids and say, figure it out. But I think the Woodland resource that AJ is connected with was a former teacher at Oxford that's eager to bring that into the district.
I want a couple minutes. We have had this central office activity account spent a million ways. $300,000 has been spent. One, bathrooms, we've talked about this, I don't understand. We should just create a priority list of what's necessary, and as a board, just develop it. We had the kids tell us their Chromebooks are slow. We should be using that, I believe, for education. If we don't have money in our operating budget, then we can use that money. I would rather buy a Chromebook, honestly, for kids to be able to not have to wait, to be able to print a pass, or to be able to upload something that they need for a research project. I would also like other schools besides the high school. Sorry, guys, I'm not against the high school, but when we had surplus money in years past, it went to sports at the high school. I understand that, but there are other schools that have priorities as well. We've talked about, and it's my pet thing I would like to see. I would like to see the first grade have a playground. I think that that's important for our kids. All kids should be able to get outside and have a playground. I understand this, that it's probably something that we need. We should have budgeted for it. And I also don't know that it's a normal board practice for us to fund clubs. We haven't necessarily funded club projects before. So while I agree that if we're gonna go down the road, that broadcasting is gonna come in as curriculum and it's gonna come in as a class, that's great. I love the idea, but we're funding a club, are we setting a precedent to then, just let me finish.
No.
Like, I know you have your idea of what you want, but so if there's another club that comes down, like we used to have the chess club, the board never paid for their equipment, their supplies. Couldn't get money for that for years. So again, I mean, there's a lot of things that $308,000 could do, but I think as a board, we should prioritize and come up with a list that we all agree upon. It's not just stuff that, well, AJ went to the committee with these items, was
Ms. O'Brien included in that discussion before it came to your committee or your committee. I just think that we don't do that. We go through the right channels.
Can I comment real quick?
1 second, there is a precedent, we've done it for drama with the investment in the theater program and the equipment.
That was for the school.
But it's for the school, but I mean. It's for the drama program. When we had the audio issues, we invested a lot of money, almost $90,000 we invested.
That was
So they would have the audio equipment for the school, but for the drama program, because we saw a need and we invested in it.
That was also funded through the operating budget though.
That was funded with
As a
excess
recommendation that the
funds.
board of, that the superintendent and administration came to the board and said, this is how we're requesting to spend the money.
We did that out of surplus, not out of pocket.
I'm just saying that the board has funded, and the board funds special initiatives in general. And we do a lot of things, but it'd be nice to, it'd be nice to spend money when we have money available. And I agree that we have $300,000 and we've been talking about spending it down for years. We haven't. I've been trying for 5-6 years to get bathrooms. I've yet to succeed. But I look at something and I go, between now and when January 1st comes, if we approve this, we could have this live right away for the kids. I might die of old age before we get those bathrooms. I'm never gonna give up on them, but I also have never seen it happen. Steve.
I mean, I think everyone's bringing a good point. We've been talking about this. Why don't we just have a meeting next week and just focus on this? Get the priority list and action the top 5, and these will probably be in there, and do it the right way. I have a process problem.
What's the meeting next week?
Well, we're not starting. Okay. The problem I have, we have a process problem. We have an AD working with committee, and the central office has no idea. That's a terrible.
Central office was at the meeting.
It was, AJ was invited as part of facilities.
AJ was,
It's okay to be there.
if we're bringing this up, we have to be honest. AJ was invited without having a conversation with me.
Okay.
Showed up with, let me finish.
I'm the board chair right now.
Yeah.
This is not gonna go out of order. Steve made a comment, he would like to have a follow-up. I'm gonna state this, there was a facility meeting. We have facility meetings. When we have them, and I was facility chair when AJ was invited. That was before Joe became the chair. The athletic director is invited. He is an active member. It started last year. Joe Stockmel showed up. We invite the athletic directors to come to facilities to talk about the needs of the fields, the needs of athletics, and to help us prepare for the next season. We do this. This is not an unusual thing. He was requested to come and present the same similar topic that Joe Stockmel did last year. Joe Stockmel recommended things for Westfield, and we did some investigations on that. AJ gave recommendations from his perspective. We did not need Joe to bring these principal from last year in to make those recommendations. He made those recommendations. We took action on them. AJ made recommendations, and we're just educating the board. And Steve, I agree with us. If we need to have another meeting and have more of this put on the table, then I'm all for it. But I do think that there is value in spending down the budget that we've talked about for years, spending down and prioritizing it.
I think these things coming to the table, whether it's the playground, the bathroom, I think this is a forcing factor. We've been wanting to do this. Let's make the list. Let's get after it. And I just, I don't know the inner details, but I just want to make sure there's communication not just to the committee, but it bubbles up to the office level, right? That's what should happen. Not our problem, but should happen.
Are you done, Steve?
go
I
ahead.
didn't want to cut you off.
No.
I just wanted to hear Dr. Miller's side, so if I could
Sure,
yield
yeah.
my time to Dr. Miller, I'd like to do that.
Thank you. In the past, if we had a member of the team showing up to a committee, the information that was presented to the committee would have been vetted through our administration first. I was unaware in advance that AJ had been asked to attend the committee. I was unaware what he's presenting to the committee until he did that evening. So none of that was discussed. The fact that he's talking about video equipment, typically that would go through the IT department and weigh in on what type of purchases we're looking to do for that. We talk about the facility and all the upgrades and talk about whether or not it fits with the other stuff that we need to do. None of those conversations took place with our team. So this is completely in isolation of how we're operating the rest of the school district.
Okay, so now that we're discussing this, do you have a list of ideas and priorities that you would like to spend this money on?
We've always operated from a sense of safety first.
Okay,
And right now, we have a track that is falling apart, that kids are getting hurt on. I think that's a high priority. We've talked about that in the past. We've also talked about this bathroom. Until we know what the actual costs are for the bathroom, it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of money until we do that. We've said that's a high priority first. We want to get that done. Let's get the quotes, let's figure out the cost for that, and then backdoor our way after that on the other needs.
and then is there also an opportunity for some of these things that maybe there could be a grant or another source of income instead of it coming from the activities? These are the things that I'd like
Yes.
to know before we sit down and decide how to spend the money.
I already
So
gave-
is this something that could be put together quickly, or you're gonna need
We need some
to
time.
do it?
We need some time for it. I mean, I did give AJ some opportunities for grants to research, that were out there for the video equipment, as an example.
Yeah.
We're in the heart of putting together the budget right now, so we need some time. This is a really busy period of time for us to stop what we're doing
Okay.
to put this type of list together right now. I can say that we're all looking at, in Mike's fund now, the entire capital improvement for the entire district.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now that we're looking at $1 million plus upgrade for network equipment. We've got equipment in these schools that a year from now will be past their age where they're no longer going to be supported, that we've got video surveillance that go through that. If those are not upgraded, the entire infrastructure falls apart.
Mhm.
I don't think the town's gonna fund that entire 100% of that project.
Okay.
So there's high priority things that are coming in that will be on that capital list that we might say, we might want to start ticking away using some of these funds as well. But I think we need to take a look at a holistic view of what the needs are before starting to say, let's start purchasing stuff.
And Mike, I'm with you. I sense your frustration that we have this money, let's use it for good. I just don't want to misspend it.
Oh, I understand that, and I have no skin in the game. I have no kid in the high school. I have no kid in the middle school. My daughter's 9 years old. She is a long way off. But I look at it and I go, we talk about spending it. If we meet next week, guess what? There's very few projects that can move forward reasonably quickly. Even the bathrooms, I can't imagine when we're gonna be able to move forward with that, even if we go forward with it. Because there's town aspects, things just get very complicated. And the thought is that we could do some good for a small amount of money, and that's how I look at it. And when I look at athletics versus academics or special education, I look at, we have a lot of issues, and to me, and it's my personal take, that athletics solves a lot of problems. You have a problem with attendance, athletics. You have problems with behavior, athletics, because if they are part of the team, they want to come to school because they can't practice if they're not at school. They can't go to games if they're not coming to school. If they misbehave, they lose the opportunity to play. If, they're in middle school and they want to go to the high school, do they go to Oxford High School or do they go somewhere else? And when they go somewhere else, are they going because of sports or are they going because they have the math class that they were looking for? Most likely it's athletics, if we're being honest. There are other reasons, but athletics is a factor for a lot of kids that leave our district. And to me, and it's my personal take, that I see a lot of the solution is on the athletic side. And yes, that's gonna be my view on it. Every person in this room will probably have a different take. I'm all for bathrooms, I'm all for playground, I'm all for us investing. I just don't want to spend another 2-3 years looking at these funds month after month. We meet with finance and we go, hey, this number, and it's still there, and it's still there. And every budget season, people throw it in our face like, you guys are monsters because you have this fund and you're not using it.
So let's make it a priority then.
So whether it's a meeting next week, next week starts getting tight as we're approaching Christmas. Steve.
I think we've been boiling over this and everyone's spirit is in the right place to do the right thing with money. Let's have a meeting. Let's say collectively all the things we know that benefit kids that may not be an operating budget thing or may not fall in. Put in a high level estimate of what it is and is there a blocker to doing it? Yes or no? A town committee will get in our way. Ease of execution, is it high, low, or medium? Boom, just a simple 3-column thing and we go, guys, we think we add up to 250 with all these things estimated. These 2 things can get done next week. and they're not real expensive. This one, we're blocked. Like, I think we just need one sheet, one quick meeting, get on the same page and come out there with some items we can actually execute, which you want to do, but do it in the right way.
And I'm fine with that, and that's, part of it was just to make sure that the board is aware, and I just want us to move forward. So if we push this a week, what's a week? We've been
Exactly.
pushing for 3 years, so.
Get the calendars out.
Yeah,
I know we have finance meeting, next week for the first view in the finance committee of the budget. We could do a quick special meeting, just lay out 15 items that we know of. Run it, just put our best guess on what the costs are, some things we know.
So should it start at the finance level then, Steve, and then?
It normally does, but if there's urgency and we're in budget season and everybody's busy starting the budget, I'm happy to like kind of bypass and just do a working session with the board,
So like a workshop?
a workshop.
Yeah.
I think it would be still considered a special meeting.
Yeah, but it's a workshop. I mean, we can call it a workshop, but it's a special meeting
Because
legally.
that's all we're gonna handle is that one.
That one item, let's
topic.
get on the same page. We've been talking about it for a long time. Let's put the list together and come out of the room like, these things we're doing right now, go get them ordered. This one, let's get our quote on the track going. I know we're in budget, but let's get somebody to look at it, get something that's even a non-binding quote, like, so, and let's just start chipping away finally.
Does anyone have any availability next Tuesday, Wednesday?
Not Wednesday, maybe Tuesday, Thursday.
Tuesday,
I am not available Tuesday.
so we have Monday, Wednesday is out. Tuesday, you're not available, I'd like you there. So Monday, is Monday available for anyone?
I am also not
The
available.
16th.
I think so.
I should talk to you about that.
Oh, we were supposed to do the first cut,
Yeah.
Howard,
Yeah.
right? We gotta move that.
You're gonna do it without me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
You could probably swing Wednesday.
we could, Howard, could do it at the back end, just to get the list going, and then you guys talk together, fill it in, if Howard can be there.
So which date?
Want to combine it with the
The
back end of it, or the front end of it, either one? So let's go Monday.
Does Monday work?
You wanna do like, we're starting at 5, right?
You'll be at 5, that's what I.
Yeah,
I thought it was
we
5, yeah.
could jump into this at like 6:30, like a regular board time.
Dr. Proveda's gonna be in my behalf then.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Alright, just to get something on paper, it's not final, but let's just get us a straw man.
5 o'clock on.
I think it's to create a list of what we need to get.
Yeah, and if we see some things like we're all in agreement, we're aligned on that list, like, alright, go order those things.
If you'll have a ballpark figure, what it
We'll have
is.
something on paper too, all of us, right? So let's do 6:30.
That's fine with me.
I'll go back and forth.
Okay.
In
Does that
person,
work?
right, here Monday?
Yeah.
6:30?
Awesome, yeah, some of us will be here already for the first run through the budget.
Do you wanna do that first, so that?
Well, leave it up to them, because I mean, we're gonna start at 5, I don't know if people can do 5, but
No.
6:30 probably works,
it's
6:30.
typical time for this type of thing.
Or do we
anyway.
wanna make it 7, so you guys, from the finance side, we're close to wrapping up, maybe.
You're gonna have an in-depth conversation with finances your first time, and probably the only opportunity before it gets just kind of finalized during the breaks. I think you need to give yourself a lot of time. to
Alright,
make
so
the numbers.
Saturday, it'll probably run to 8.
Okay.
Alright.
Seven.
That's not a lot of time.
Time.
That's not a lot of time. You might want a few hours just for finance.
Just tell me, I'll be here all day.
Forget you take away, we'll get quickly to the things that are
Bring
gonna
your
be
slippers.
of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can move quick.
we're not gonna go through it line by line in budget.
That's big ticket items.
No, it's gonna be.
Steve, you, me and Joe will start putting the document together between now and then, so we have like a working document,
Start filling some stuff in,
just the basics.
playground,
Yep.
track, bathrooms, maps,
Chromebooks.
Chromebooks, as a
Yeah.
backup if
And possibly even some technology
And-
upgrades infrastructure wise.
the media thing, whatever, let's get on it. And what we think the level of effort is to implement it,
Great,
like timing thing, and then if there's blockers, like a town
right.
issue.
So I think we could at least start putting the document together.
Yeah, start it. Well, let's do it a little more formal, let's get feeling good about it, and let's nail it and start spending.
So before we move on to the next, subcommittee report, Joe, did you have anything else? Are we good? All right, that was the most in-depth, long conversation we've had on facilities ever.
Sure, we'll
At
have
a
an
subcommittee.
now.
Curriculum.
Okay, so we had a meeting on the 25th. You all got your district assessment information
Yes.
from Eric. We wanted to give you the opportunity to look at it, and we'll come back in January and have further discussion. Attached to your board, agenda for tonight is grade 10 health curriculum for board approval. Remember, we approved the curriculum and, we've approved the course already, so this is just the curriculum. Resources, on this, will come back to the board if there's any changes in the resources.
So we talked like, yeah, in the future, certain classes like English, civics, health classes and so forth, coming back like either every half year or year.
Half year.
Just to update the resources section. Obviously, resources change over time. So I was also talking with Jim, and I think after break, we'll be ready to go. But what we have right now, public for curriculum, posted curriculum, won't be everything. Kind of have a page that explains, hey, we got to take everything from this old platform to the new. It's time consuming. So Jim and I are still working on it every single day. And the resources for every single unit, for every curriculum posted, will be part of the public front facing piece.
And as Deb said, we talked about this particular curriculum, the texts and resources will change over time. So the agreement we had is that we'll go back to the curriculum committee when the changes are actually crafted, but the motion for this evening actually puts that in there, that we holding us accountable to do that act.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions on the curriculum as it was presented to you?
No, just a comment. I think, as you guys know, we're on a good path now. Eric has been doing a great job, and just as a side comment, like the resource revisiting of certain classes, because resources change, is really us getting a view of what is being proposed to the kids on the resource collateral basis, not just like the big textbook, like ancillary pieces of books or work papers or whatever. So it gives us visibility to that and improve it before it goes out.
So we just need to do a motion to approve that, grade 10, health. So I'll make the motion to approve grade 10 health curriculum with the understanding that changes to require text with this curriculum will be presented to review for the Board of Ed, curriculum committee.
Sorry.
I have a question.
It's discussion.
The curriculum?
Yeah,
Steve seconded it.
And now
Discussion.
Go ahead.
discussion, okay. This is 10 sessions, if I'm reading.
Grade 10.
10th grade.
10 for 3 to 4 weeks. I'm trying to get, where does this fit into the whole scheme of things?
No, each unit. So you might have been looking at unit 1, says 3 to 4 weeks. Unit 2.
It's an excellent class.
Or units, the whole class, so that you scroll through.
Yeah, so this is.
It's a half credits.
Mandatory class.
Yeah, so basically like the way, so with the passing of like the Connecticut State Healthy Framework, like we have like ninth grade, as you guys know, like PE health is kind of like, it's a little bit of PE, you get pulled up for health, a little PE, a little bit of health. So this course helps us fits the state requirement as well as allowing us to hit all those standards. So this will be a standalone, whereas ninth grade, we hit some of them, but it's in and out. This will be its standalone piece. And we'll have to take a look at that ninth grade model next to see if that's still gonna work or if we need to make that kind of standalone courses.
Okay, because I just look at some of the questions there, the definition of mental health, and then the food pyramid chain later down and all this kind of stuff, Is this?
It's required
Is
topic.
this really necessary?
It's required topics by the state. It's part of the
Required by
standards.
state, but as a mandate.
I mean, it's the health standards. Yes, there's certain topics you have to hit, including like mental health and nutrition and all that stuff, yes.
I'm just speechless because, with the mental health and the food thing and, like red dye is a big thing right now. We knew red dye was bad in 1950, and we're still putting in stuff, So we're going through all these questions of mental health, this guy that just killed the healthcare guy was valedictorian and a genius, he must have had pretty good mental health during the part of his life, and he's in that case. So where does the student body fit into this, most of this came from the church and Boy Scouts and other things, these kind of values and stuff were developed before you got into school. It wasn't the school's mandate to teach me what to eat, And now all of a sudden, it's a mandate that we have to
Well,
do
the schools-
somebody that, hey, guess what? They were wrong. You can actually eat eggs and it doesn't blow your brain and it doesn't build cholesterol. So for 50 years, they've been wrong, So this could be, I don't know. I'm not against it, anything you learn, but it's like just going down a path that everybody should be coming from the family and the church and scouts and other civic things and not tying up school. They should be learning math and business and other, things that will help them when they get out of here. But anyway, that's my.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And then there's a couple
Thanks,
of course proposals that will be coming forward in January, I hope. Web, mobile apps, web design, and forest forensics. So we'll be talking about those. As Eric said, the book stack curriculum program will be up and running. And then we're going to be talking about some course sequencing, literacy, math, and a lovely PSAT, SAT project. And that was it for curriculum. Thank you.
Hey, policy, Nicole.
I'll be quick. We have one policy. It's the suicide prevention and intervention policy. It's down for second read. At the last meeting, we talked about the fact that we reviewed this back in June of 2024. We tabled it because we wanted a chance to have Dr. Brown, our medical advisor, to weigh in on it. He's reviewed it. He asked that there no changes be made. It's pretty straightforward. It's the idea if you think there's a kid in trouble that it triggers certain reporting and certain actions taken by any district employee, and that's what's laid out here. So does anybody have any questions or concerns? Hearing none, I'm to make a motion that we approve the policy as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those abstain?
Motion carries.
Motion carried. There was another one.
Any opposed?
Opposed, I forgot to be opposed. So I apologize. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Finance.
All right, I'll make it quick. We met a couple weeks ago. As you heard, we're gonna be meeting on Monday to get a first cut of the budget, right? And then we're gonna have another meeting regarding budgets. Just really high level, these numbers are probably already outdated, but encumbrance and expenditures 33.6 million so far, leaving 1.5 million of availability. We officially have finalized flood expenses, $33,000. We discussed some minor personnel changes. We did go through the central activities fund and the school funds as well. We did go through, Howard presented some budget transfers as he does periodically or every month. There were some changes that need to be approved. We're gonna do that with a motion in a moment, as we always do for board policy. From the P card discussions we've been having, Howard is gonna continue forward with JP Morgan. Everything that we thought contractually was gonna, with the state card is gonna stay intact, even though the state left JP Morgan to go to a different provider. Just for example, on the P card, paying the AT&T bill every year, that's gonna create a $5,000 rebate. So that's good news.
5%.
5%,
$200.
yeah, sorry, 5%. Close. Close. I think the one item that Vic was talking about earlier that we should touch on is there was, the $250-ish thousand gap in electricity due to the community fees, which is close, generally close to 30%, that were not planned for. I think Howard, so far, I think we've had some favorability in hiring lines where we didn't fill a role, I believe. And we moved some other money around where we've had favorability. I don't know if you want to go deeper, but
It's up to you. Maybe a little.
just highlight one or two.
So, okay, so the biggest move was that, we aren't fully, last year, if you recall, the board added a PCBA to the special education. There was one in there. We added another one. We haven't fully utilized that, so that created like $120,000 because it was, I think, the total cost $160. So we haven't fully utilized that this year. We're not going to continue fully utilizing it. So we were able to take some of that funds, and that made a big portion. That was the largest portion of that transfer that covered that gap that we have, in the budget. There was also we always have a line item in there for degree changes. There were no degree changes this year in salary, so that's $50,000. So that's another piece of it. So if you start adding the pieces, we pulled together other pieces, much smaller numbers, but it got to about $250,000 that then was moved into the electricity line. You've also seen the report that I have in my monthly report. It's the analysis. And we're running a little hotter than 850,000, but I think we're so early in the year, we have to wait and see with the new system functioning, and we're supposed to be making the savings there. So I'm hoping that as we progress through the year, we'll start to see the bills go down, which will then drop that number back into the 850 range. So, any questions other than that? Vic, you good?
No, it sounds like, you're looking, my concern is, what are we doing to look to see where we can get the monies to take and fund?
Yeah, and I think we're pretty covered on that. It's just a matter of now tracking it on a monthly basis, which is what I'm doing, and so I'm putting that report into my monthly report.
I think you're gonna find as we go through this budget process, in fact, I think what you're gonna find in the board that we have this year covered very well by moving some pieces around and as with the degree stuff. Our concern becomes next year, the impact the increase is gonna be, and that overall net for the overall budget increase, which right now we can't make up. Those are funds that are gonna be added to the budget that's unaccounted for. That's gonna be an automatic increase to the percent that we're asking for.
Correct.
And that's gonna be the big impact that we're concerned about is next year's impact.
Monday's meeting is gonna be very interesting when it comes to that, especially that line.
Because the concerns that not what you put, the one before that, we put in extra money for oil. The oil was going out of sight.
Correct.
And then last year, or for this year, we didn't put that in there because oil prices were kind of stable. And it's been pretty warm. So I don't know if there's savings in the oil bill. The electric bill, and I think you brought the point up, is we put all this new equipment in here. We should be saving some money because we're paying capital expenses to get all this stuff in. It should have some notable reduction in what we consume. And you can help me out on this because mostly from my own knowledge. The supply part of your bill, okay, is the big part. Okay, your percentages for all the other.
Part, the distribution is the bigger part. You have generation, you have delivery. Those are your two pieces, and delivery ends up being about 60% of the bill, and the generation is about 40% of it.
You cut the supply part.
The generation.
All the other parts
You're
are
saying the
percentage,
generation?
all the other parts are percentage of your supply bill.
No, well, the way the bill is very detailed, and it's based on the kilowatt hours usage.
Exactly.
Right.
So if you use less kilowatts, that's one bill, that's.
Well, so you
23%.
both sides go down.
Both sides, yeah.
Both sides both use kilowatts, so it doesn't matter, but it's, if you use less kilowatts, yes, your entire bill is going down.
I'm saying the generator of reducing the second part is the first part. And I think we're agreeing on that. You use less, you pay less for all the other government
Correct.
charges. Right. So I was just trying to see if we're focusing on efficiencies in the building. Because I sat 7 years ago, we had all kinds of ducts and baffles and automatic things, and we're cutting electricity by 92%, and the bill went up, so I was just trying to focus that we're looking at it the same way. That all this new equipment and things that we put in, they should be generating, some successes for us to reduce our bills, and I think that'd be a nice thing to come out and bring out to the town and to the people that's saying, we've done these things, we've reduced our consumption, and our bill is going up because of, but there's all this equipment, everything we did should have a savings someplace that we could tout off, say we did something good there.
I think in theory, you're correct, but we won't know until at least another budget cycle.
Well, that's all I'm
Like, right, so when we can measure it, not this time, next year, we can start calculating, comparing kilowatts used, and then we can come up with hopefully a good story.
And the
to
other
help
piece,
community.
right, and the other piece to this, as Steve just said, we don't know the impact until we go through the winter and the spring and the summer to see what the energy and efficiency is. The other piece to this, let me just finish this out, is that this building never had air conditioning, and now we're talking about something that's running multiple months that didn't have any kind of before.
That's true too.
On top of that, the
Okay.
town government signed a Eversource lease for us to pay for part of this project. That we are gonna begin paying for this, or that
It's a
was
$1
not
million-
budgeted
$1 million
for.
No interest loan payable over 5 years, so if you just do the math, it's $200,000 a year that's being added to our budget.
That we never budgeted for. So while there might be energy efficiencies, we're also now paying for additional
And
expenses.
I'm just saying, those are important points that should be brought out.
Well, they will be.
So that, okay.
We never turn a nice slide, Howard.
Yes.
We slide that check right across.
It'll be a nice
I think
slide.
you'll be, when you see the budget on Monday, if that is one of the biggest drivers of what you're gonna see when the percentage comes, when I close the budget on Monday and show you what that first pass is, it's probably the salaries are obviously a big driver, but that is a big driver of what the increase is gonna be next year.
Howard, can we get a list? I mean, is it possible, isn't there some end date on the community fees? I heard there was some projected end date.
I thought it was around a year, but I could.
I thought it was a year as well.
We should probably get that, and we should, if that's documented, we should model that, 'cause that's a 30% increase. And if we know when it cuts off, we could model that to be,
Sure, when it's gonna come off.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think we should find that out.
Okay.
It's a good point.
And that money for that the town signed that we never agreed to.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money out of our budget this year.
Wasn't there some dialogue back? Did we ever send an email off? The Hibbert, by now, Hibbert.
No, Herman.
Wow.
Agents.
Herman.
Kaliva.
Kaliva,
All
sorry.
right, Jim Oliva.
I know it's a hit, but
But that's a large amount of money that we
It is.
had not planned on.
We didn't
And we
agree
didn't
to.
agree to it. It was supposed to be paid for on the town side, not the board of eds, but
okay, yeah, so those are the highlights. It's getting late, and tentatively, we have January 14th as a second round review
Okay.
of the budget.
Yeah.
If you guys want to mark your calendars, unless it's
Howard,
changed.
do we need to vote on transfers?
Oh, yeah, we gotta do a motion.
Yeah, we should-
So back to we got into a little bit of the annual, monthly budget transfers. I'm gonna make a motion to approve budget transfers per the finance deck attached to the board meeting put together by Howard.
Gotcha.
Fix that up.
AI.
Yeah. Any seconds?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Okay, liaison report.
I got you.
Thanks.
Festival of Trees, everyone come on down this weekend, Friday's with Santa and the actual festival will be all day Saturday. It's looking very festive over at the Woodbury.
PTO, any updates?
I missed the last meeting.
Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
motion for adjournment.
Any second? All those in favor?